Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Luck Seizing System, Dominate the Universe. Chapter 61. Finally, there is the method of refining the three elements into one. This method is supreme, and it is consistent with the true form of chaos. Its importance is beyond doubt. It can be said to be the outline of the Tao. After comprehending the mystery of the Qi refining realm, Zhao Yu learned a lot from it, briefly understood the mysterious context of this method, and realized many wonders. This also shows that the significance of the Summoning Saint card to Zhao Yu is absolutely irreplaceable. When I first came to this world, it was precisely because of the Summoning Holy card that I was able to quickly complete the main mission of founding the sect and get a place to stay. It was also because of the Summoning Holy card that the play was performed perfectly just now. Because of the Holy Summoning card, the secret of the Chaos Real Body's transformation and 9 refinements is all in my heart, and there is no bottleneck. This time, because of the Summoning Holy card, he was able to fully comprehend the first small layer of the 5 elements magnetic divine light, the first volume of the Alchemy Sutra, and the first volume of the 3 Yuan Gui Yi Qi refining method in just 15 minutes. Of course, Chunyang body refining fist must also be added, although this boxing method has no effect on him. The rewards are self-evident. In addition, he also took this opportunity to completely refine the Tai Cave Heaven, and also refined the magic weapon that was rewarded after completing the mission. By the way, he also rebuilt a 5-element magnetic array for the farm, and transformed the Cave Heaven. Fan made the face of the sect clear. Although these things are much less important to Zhao Yu than comprehending the skills, they are all necessary things. Now I can save a lot of effort, calling the Holy Card as a great benefit. Now that the 2 supreme skills have no bottlenecks, they can advance by leaps and bounds. As long as the resources can keep up, Zhao Yu can become stronger in a short time. I have also understood all the Alchemy Sutras in one volume. I know the methods of refining low-grade, medium-grade and high-grade elixirs clearly. If I have the materials, I can also refine the first-grade golden elixirs. The divine light of the 5 elements Yuan magnetic is also understood clearly, and it can reversely infer dozens of 5 elements spells and magical powers, as well as dozens of foundation building techniques and combat techniques related to the 5 elements. There is also the method of refining the 3 elements into one, which is very mysterious. There are also various branches of methods that can be understood and copied at any time to enrich the Sutra Storage Tower. The sect also has a reputation, is protected by formations, is safer, and has transcendence. All these things made Zhao Yu breathe a long sigh of relief. For Zhao Yu, although Tai sect is very rudimentary now, it has truly established a foothold. And of all these, the power of summoning the Holy Card is undoubtedly the first. It's a pity that this sign can only be turned over 3 times, and now there is only one left. I used it twice in a short period of time, but Zhao Yu has no regrets. Everything is difficult at the beginning. The most difficult thing is to start anything. Now that I have a good head start and have laid a sufficient foundation, I will be much more relaxed in the future. If he pinched it and didn't use it, Zhao Yu would probably still be struggling at the moment. All kinds of thoughts were boiling and floating in my mind, and it took a while to sort them out. Zhao Yu exhaled, opened his eyes, and showed a relaxed smile. What happened at the ghost farm that night had a huge impact on the entire United States, and even the entire Earth. Of course, ordinary people must exclude this influence. For ordinary people, even residents not far from the farm only heard an explosion and vaguely saw some fire, and were fooled by the government for any reason. Those who were really affected are the officials, the extraordinary ones, and the predators lurking under the water. In the short few minutes when Zhao Yu fought against the Qihen Tai Wuyuan Demon Lord, with New York as the center, everything within a radius of thousands of miles, including the geomagnetic field, electromagnetic field and other levels of power, was severely affected. Powerful mana fluctuations radiated out from the place where the 2 met, causing communication to be interrupted and monitoring to become blind. Many electronic devices were damaged in this mana fluctuation. After the mana fluctuations dissipated, the countries and forces with satellites mobilized the satellites to take pictures during that period. They could only see nothingness in an area of several hundred miles with New York as the center, like a huge black hole. There seemed to be a sky covering the area at that moment. The US government was the first to know the whole story about what happened at the ghost farm during this period. Although there is no video or visual evidence, combined with the confessions of all those who witnessed the incident, the timely and detailed explanation provided by SHIELD, and the shady footage captured by satellite, the US government knows that on that small farm, actually hiding such an extremely powerful human being. No, two. One is the owner of the farm, the master of Tai sect, Tai Jiao Yu. One is his opponent, a villain who comes from nowhere and is called the Red Hun Tai Wuyuan Demon Lord, by the leader of the Tai sect. These two people only had a slight contact for less than 10 seconds, but they caused such a huge impact and loss to the entire United States. What if they played for half an hour? I shudder just thinking about it. Are you afraid that the whole of New York, and even the larger area, will be turned into ruins? No, maybe the ruins won't even exist. You know, as soon as a person makes a move, a black hole will be created. If the master of the Tai sect hadn't eliminated the black hole, I'm afraid. This makes the heads of the US government extremely anxious. Those in power always want to have everything firmly in their hands. But Tai and Chihan Taiwuan Demon Lord are not included in this list. If they have been lurking, like others, doing things in a low-profile manner, it will be easy to turn a blind eye and turn a blind eye. But now they are all showing up, which is really unacceptable. This made them deeply feel the crisis. But there is nothing they can do. Even nuclear bombs are not as powerful as these two people. These two people are simply mobile humanoid strategic weapons that surpass nuclear bombs, and they are super strategic weapons with unknown endurance. If possible, the US government would definitely drive Jiao Yu away, and even kill, capture, and conduct anatomy research on Jiao Yu. Such a time bomb, although listening to the oral accounts of those who experienced the incident, this person seems to be pretty good, but it is not under control. Everything is a hidden danger. Especially that Chihuntai Wuyuan Demon Lord. But no. They don't have that ability, they can't bear such losses, and they are even more afraid of death. Such a person can crush all the upper-level people in power in the US government to death with just a few moves of his fingers. Take a look, the Brotherhood of Mutants, which is a headache for the US government, the extremely ferocious Magneto, SHIELD and the X-Men who are responsible for the security of the dark world of the Earth, and many villains and superheroes. People only took a glance at it. They all surrendered. This is simply not human. What can I do? Well, if we can't be enemies, then we have to be friends. When US officials are making various decisions, all kinds of news about Tai sect, Tai, Jiao Yu, and Chihan Taiwuan Demon Lord, whether true or false, detailed or exaggerated, are released through various channels. Start spreading. Several major powers and the Hydra hidden in the dark side of the United States, the most well-informed, received information one after another after the United States. Then there are a few extraordinary forces, extraordinary people, extraordinary races, etc. The news about these people will lag much behind. What happened that night determined the future development direction of many things and changed the fate of countless people. Just like that group of villains who come to the farm to play in the autumn breeze and do many evil things, including most of the backbone of the Brotherhood of Mutants, including super criminals, gang bosses and backbones in the New York underworld, as well as the scum lurking in the New York police force, and the mandarins who were lured by Jiao Yu but had no chance to show up at the farm. These people actually got an opportunity that night, the Chihan Tai Wuyuan Demon Lord. Before daybreak, these people were in hiding. Some of them fled away from home because they were afraid of Jiao Yu. But there are also people who are lucky enough to think they can hide in the dark, and they are still lurking in New York. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Jiao Yu sent 4 disciples out of Tai Cave. By the way, Ruiwen has completed her apprenticeship and became Jiao Yu's 4th disciple. Led by Tony, the 4 senior brothers and sisters came out of Tai Cave. What they faced was a bare farm, with a thick layer completely shaved off. The farm was bombed first last night, and the land area doubled. Then there was a battle between extraordinary beings, and finally the battle between 2 big bosses, Jiao Yu and Chihan Tai Wuyuan Demon Lord. The entire farm had long been reduced to ruins, but the formation of the black hole sucked away all the ruins and floating soil, and was leveled by Jiao Yu. Therefore, this picture is left. It's like a deserted wilderness. Okay, now I have the most intuitive feeling. Tony curled his lips. They are simply not human. Look, a good farm, surrounded by flowers, grass and greenery. What has changed now? Peter shrugged. Even the small lake is gone. Their battle is concentrated in the sky. If the energy is vented on the ground, I think what we will see is not just like this. Harry said. This is not the key. Tony said. If you can live in such a wilderness in the next 3 months, it will be considered camping, which is not bad. You can make phone calls and connect to the internet. But guys, it's a cave. That's not it. In one dimension, if I want to survive for 3 months in a place like that, a place without any modern atmosphere of human civilization, I might as well go back and jump off Stark Tower. He looked hopeless. Raven sneered. Then you go and dance. Tony's eyes widened. Don't think you are older than me, I am your senior brother. A few black lines appeared on Ruiwen's forehead. If you keep talking about my age, I will definitely give you a good memory when the annual competition is held. Tony suddenly stopped talking. The annual competition is also a rule Zhao Yu set last night. All disciples in the sect who are in the foundation building and body training stage must hold a competition at the end of each year. Although his life would not be in danger, if he was really going to be beaten all over his face, in front of so many disciples, where would he put his arrogant senior brother's face? Tony immediately made up his mind to practice hard in these 3 months. Harry looked at the 3 senior brothers and sisters with a speechless expression, and said helplessly, I think we should do the things Master told us first. What do you think? Tony shrugged. Then I'll leave first. The rest will be left to the 3 junior brothers and junior sisters. Peter made a gesture of invitation. Tony waved and walked away. Today he is responsible for all kinds of utensils needed by the sect, and nothing is missing. Moreover, he has to stay in the sect for 3 months and cannot leave. After all, he has a large group under him, and he must explain clearly and make some arrangements. As for the 3 Peters, their main task today is to welcome guests. After what happened last night and Zhao Yu's promise, there must be many people coming over today, either to visit and build relationships or to learn from their teachers. I have to call the teacher to ask for leave first, Peter complained. At least 2 or 3 days. Harry sighed after hearing this. You only need 2 or 3 days, but I need at least 2 months of vacation. They are still high school students. 2 months, just take a leave of absence. Peter said, let your father help you apply for a leave of absence. That's my plan, Harry nodded. Take advantage of these 2 months to practice hard and try to catch up with you. That's not necessarily the case. Peter said proudly, I won't stop and wait for you. We'll see. Harry showed no sign of weakness. What about you, junior sister fourth? Peter turned to ask Raven. You don't have a job or anything. You don't need to resign or take leave. Raven crossed her arms across her chest and said disdainfully, I'm different from a little kid. Peter screamed strangely. That little brat is also your senior brother. Harry added. The 4th junior sister's boss is guarding the door in the cave. Who can she ask for leave from? Raven's nostrils suddenly filled with smoke. She didn't have a good temper and would hit her when she raised her hand. Peter and the 2 quickly got out of the way. As senior brothers, we are not as knowledgeable as our junior sisters. Don't make random moves. Let's not say whether you can beat us or not. Even if you beat us down, you will receive us alone later. If you are in a hurry, you will get into trouble. Be careful, Master will deal with you. When Ruiwen heard this, she gritted her teeth and suddenly burst into laughter. She found that she seemed to be a little different. Was she getting younger when she was having trouble with a little kid? Coming. The 3 brothers and sisters were joking for a while, then they heard the faint sound of cars coming from far away. Harry, Raven, guess who might be the first to arrive? The car hadn't arrived yet, but there was only a slight sound, and Peter said, bet on an energy pill. Keep your word. Harry's eyes lit up. I'll go first. It must be S.H.I.E.L.D. I guess they are from the government. Ruiwen said calmly. The Jingqi pill is a good thing. Although she has not taken it yet, she also knows that Peter and Harry can become stronger than her from ordinary people in a short period of time. In addition to the martial arts, the Jingqi pill is also indispensable. Moreover, Magneto was bleeding from all his orifices at that time. She fed him an essence pill and he woke up soon. Of course, what she didn't know was that Zhao Yu didn't do anything cruel, otherwise he wouldn't say essence. A low-grade elixir like a chi elixir is useless, even a golden elixir is useless. Peter was stunned for a moment and looked frustrated. I should have guessed first. This is my suggestion. But we have already guessed. Harry chuckled and said, admit defeat. Peter, listen, this is not the sound of a car, it is a convoy. It's either S.H.I.E.L.D. or the government, it's impossible for an individual. What about Xavier's School for the Gifted? Peter said harshly. Charles is an old stubbornness. Ruiwin looked disdainful. They must still be arguing at this time. Although Charles agreed to Zhao Yu's proposal, he agreed to agree. Didn't he say that he was voluntary? So let's say, voluntary. As he was talking, sure enough, a motorcade drove over and stopped not far away. When the door of the first black off-road vehicle opened, Fury, a one-eyed dragon wearing a black windbreaker, stepped out. Harry looked happy and smiled proudly at Peter. Peter spread his hands and said, admit your bet and admit defeat. Don't worry, Ruiwin said calmly, there is more. Then I saw a middle-aged white man in a suit and tie getting out of another car. The middle-aged man and Fury nodded to each other and walked over together. Good morning. Fury showed a smile, shook hands with the three Peters, and introduced, this is Congressman John of Congress. John stretched out his hand and said with a smile, I'm John, hello. Raven gave Peter a proud look and stretched out her hand to shake Senator John's hand. I'm visiting Mr. Zhao Yu on behalf of the U.S. government. John smiled and said, do I need to make an appointment? You are so funny, Peter said with a smile, anyone can come today, no reservation is required. Very good, then, John smiled slightly, I'm looking forward to meeting Mr. Zhao Yu. Then he said, I heard that Mr. Zhao Yu's Tai sect wants to recruit students from outside, right? Mr. Peter, do you think we can do it? Their group, S.H.I.E.L.D. and the U.S. government, had 20 vehicles and 70 to 80 people. At first glance, it was dark and dense. All of them were strong and energetic. The positions and postures of the groups standing in groups were unusual. They looked like they were all soldiers or agents who had undergone rigorous training. Why not? Peter said, I like the excitement. I would be very happy if there were more fellow disciples, and so would Harry, right? Harry nodded calmly. Peter added, but let's be clear, we are not beckoning students, but disciples. John shrugged and said with a smile, sorry, I may not have understood the difference between students and disciples. But it doesn't matter. Having such an opportunity is very good for all of us. Fury on the side interjected, what about Mr. Zhao? He looked around. There is nothing here. Peter said, third junior brother will take everyone in immediately. Don't make a fuss. So he nodded to Harry, and Harry said, Director Fury, Counselor John, our Tai sect is not exactly here, but in another dimension. I'm here to take everyone in, but I can only take 5 people in at a time. Quote. Fury and John looked at each other, each exchanged a look, and then Fury smiled and said, thank you very much. To enter and exit Tai Cave Heaven, you need the Cave Heaven brand given by Zhao Yu. The 4 direct disciples, myself, my wife, and Magneto were all branded by Zhao Yu. But those who are eligible to receive the brand can only be members of the sect. It is impossible for non-sect figures to receive the gift. The corresponding person must be picked up and dropped off when entering or exiting. And one brand can only carry 5 people at a time. While the people from the government and S.H.I.E.L.D. were queuing up, many more people came here one after another. Peter asked them to line up, and Raven sent them into the cave. As for Harry, he never came out after going in. In the Tai cave, nearly 100 people have gathered outside the mountain gate. Harry stood at the head, with Fury and John beside him. Harry said loudly, don't be anxious, everyone. It may take a few minutes. We can make arrangements together after most people have come in. Let me first talk about the apprenticeship procedure of my Tai sect. He pointed back at the mountain gate and the stairs. Everyone has seen it, this is the mountain gate. Follow the 299 steps to the end, where the sect is. Everyone can see the buildings halfway up the mountain, that is the sect. Quote. When everyone is almost here, we will start to go through the procedures. There are 2 levels of test formations on this step up the mountain. The first level of formation is relatively simple. Those who pass the test of the first level of formation are the registered disciples of Tai sect. The second formation is more difficult, and those who have passed the 2 tests together are the direct disciples. It seems that the status of direct disciples is higher than that of registered disciples. On the side, John and Fury were talking in a low voice. Yes, Fury said. For example, Harry, he is his direct disciple. John nodded slightly. Their luck is better, they directly skip the test. A few minutes later, Raven came in with 3 people. Harry took a look. Is there no one outside? Raven said. Maybe there will still be one, but it's gone now. Peter is here. Harry nodded. Okay. Then he clapped his hands and said, please pay attention. According to their own wishes, those who intend to become direct disciples should stand on the left, and others should stand on the right. When more than 100 people were divided into groups, Harry smiled and said to Fury and John, 2 gentlemen, what about you? Do you want to join the sect? Or are you just bringing them here without you participating? Fury smiled. I'll come too. If I miss this opportunity, I think I will regret it for the rest of my life. His profession determines that the stronger he is, the more stable he will be. So he had already decided to join the Tai sect. As for Face, a guy like Fury who has been an agent for decades doesn't really care. John shook his head and said with a smile, I think Tai sect recruits disciples not only once, right? Harry understood what he meant and nodded. Master said it will be once a year for the time being, and it will depend on the situation in the future. While talking, more than 100 people had already divided into 2 groups. Among them, those on the left who are aiming at direct disciples account for the majority. The status of a direct disciple is higher, who doesn't want to start at a higher starting point. There are about 20 or 30 people left, and they are on the right. They seem to have no love for their direct disciples, or they have concerns, or they simply don't want to become direct disciples. Harry was about to speak when suddenly, a figure stepped out of the void. Master. Harry and Raven bowed quickly. Zhao Yu was wearing a chaotic gold-rimmed Taoist robe. He looked majestic and otherworldly, and his temperament was extraordinary. Because Zhao Yu has completely refined Dongtian and can use the power of Dongtian to do things that he cannot do on his own. Like walking in the void. Zhao Yu gave full marks to the pen he wore on the stage, but his face had a calm and elegant look. He stood with his hands behind his back. For a moment, everyone's eyes fell on him. Zhao Yu's gaze swept across, and wherever he passed, no one could hide any secrets in front of this gaze, as if they had been stripped naked. As he looked past, heads were hanging down like wheat seedlings blown by the wind in a wheat field. Zhao Yu nodded slightly and said calmly, although the tests of direct disciples and registered disciples can be completed at the same time, in order to highlight the status of direct disciples, 2 groups of people with different positions are tested separately. Each person only has 1 chance, and if they fail if you meet the requirements, you will have no chance with this sect. He waved his sleeves. Tianyi, let's get started. Yes, Master, Harry replied. Harry and Raven's clothes now also transformed into robes. The robes of the direct disciples were all milky white robes with golden patterns, which Zhao Yu exchanged from the system through gritted teeth. The attire of the 3 masters and disciples stood out here. If it were outside, it would be costly, but here, more than 100 people in the venue felt that such clothes were in line with the environment here, and they became like rubes. Especially the changes in the clothes of Harry and Raven made them guess that this kind of clothes was not ordinary. Many people became jealous. Maybe non-government, SHIELD individuals just think the clothes are magical. But people from the government and SHIELD saw the meaning in it. How convenient would it be if these agents or soldiers had a piece of clothing like this and could unknowingly change their identities at any time when going on a mission? Fury's eyes lit up and he began to think about it secretly. But what they don't know is that this is a benefit for direct disciples, and the registered disciple Zhao Yu does not intend to give it to them. Zhao Yu turned to John and said, since Senator John does not intend to participate in the test, let me and I take the first step. Without waiting for John to reply, he grabbed John's arm, took a step forward, and disappeared into the void. The next moment, the 2 people walked out of the void and appeared together on the wide field outside the sect gate at the end of the stairs halfway up the mountain. John was in shock. After a while, he finally exhaled and calmed down. He looked around and said with a wry smile, Mr. Zhao is really unexpected. Zhao Yu made a gesture of invitation and walked up to the stairs. John followed immediately and stood beside him. Zhao Yu looked at the entrance test that was starting at the bottom of the mountain and said calmly, Congressman John should have some questions to ask me, right? John nodded. Yes, I represent Congress and the government. I want to talk to Mr. Zhao. It is best to reach a tacit understanding. Zhao Yu nodded slightly. I have already anticipated your thoughts. Before John could ask, Zhao Yu said directly, you don't have to worry about me and my Tai sect. I don't care about the power and money of mortals, and I have no intention of intervening in mortal fights. He said lightly, to me, everything about mortals is just a passing cloud. Thousands of years, 10,000 years, you have long since vanished into thin air. Perhaps the earth no longer exists, but I am still sitting high in the clouds. But since I want to establish a sect in this world, I have to deal with the mortal government. I don't want to bully mortals, but you can't have any inappropriate thoughts. I follow the principle of fairness. In addition to martial arts, my sect, everything else can be open to you within a certain limit. Whatever you want, just exchange it for something of equal value or something that this sect needs. What do you think? When John heard this, his eyes lit up slightly and his mind started to spin rapidly. Cooperation. That's what you said. Zhao Yu said. I won't embarrass you, and you can't embarrass me. There is a gap between us. Sect disciples will not violate your laws, and you can't do anything to them. My disciples do anything harmful. This is the prerequisite for cooperation. Of course, John smiled. We uphold the principles of freedom and equality. Zhao Yu waved his hand. Don't say such clichés in front of me. John was a little embarrassed. Zhao Yu added, you can send a permanent envoy to the sect. If you have any needs, such as elixirs, magical weapons, or troubles that need to be solved, you can use this envoy to convey it to my Tai sect. I will use the mission as a guide. The form will be released and the disciples will be able to decide whether to accept the corresponding tasks. When our Tai sect is in need, we will also convey information to you through this messenger. As for whether the people you bring can become disciples of the sect, it depends on whether they can pass the entrance test. If they pass, they will have the opportunity to become my direct disciples, and I will treat them equally. Regardless of whether they will continue to serve you after they have completed cultivation. I still have other ideas. As long as they don't violate the sect's rules, I won't interfere too much. From Zhao Yu's words, John actually got what he wanted. From what happened last night, they had already come to the conclusion that they could not offend Zhao Yu. Therefore, they could not make any strong demands on Zhao Yu. What they want is to have a good relationship with Zhao Yu. If they can get some benefits at the same time, that would be the best. And now, Zhao Yu gave him a satisfactory answer. However, Zhao Yu seemed to be able to see through their thoughts, which also frightened John. John calmed down and said with a smile, I completely agree with your opinion. He said, equality, fairness and freedom, we will definitely abide by it. Very good. Mr. President has decided to rebuild the farm for you, Mr. Zhao. This is our sincerity. John said. I hope Mr. Zhao can accept it. Zhao Yu smiled. Why not? Speaking of which, your government was also responsible for the attack on the farm last night. It would be appropriate for you to rebuild it. John laughed dryly and said helplessly, but Mr. Zhao, you don't know that our government often has nothing to do with those extraordinary people. Often when they commit crimes, all we can do is wipe their butts. Zhao Yu shook his head. It will get better and better in the future. John's eyes fell on the group of people climbing the stairs, and he nodded with deep understanding. When it comes to the entry test for recruiting disciples, Zhao Yu actually borrowed methods from some novels before time travel. However, Zhao Yu's test is simpler, with only one test, not as many as 3, 5, and 7 or 8. But this test alone is no small matter. Even if the magic power of the formations arranged in the state of divine possession has shrunk countless times due to the possession of the Holy Soul, the control of the magic power and the understanding of the laws are still unfathomable. These two formations test one's perseverance and torture one's soul. The array that tests perseverance is actually a 5-element array, in which water and fire alternate, golden knives sashimi, forest fascinates the gods, and is accompanied by a minimum of twice the gravity suppression, making every step difficult. Questioning the heart formation, as the name suggests, is to torture the mind of those who enter the formation to test whether they have the heart to follow the Tao. The first test of perseverance, based on the quality of the people here today, in Zhao Yu's opinion, there are many people who can pass the test, less than half, or 30%. In other words, there may be 30 or 50 registered disciples recruited today. As for the second level of heart questioning formation, this kind of torture that directly points to the soul, its difficulty is much higher for these participants. Not everyone has the desire to follow the Tao. People who have the heart to follow the Tao are born to be the material for cultivating immortals and asking questions. It is easy to pick 1 out of 10,000. Zhao Yu is far from being able to see through people's minds at a glance, so he doesn't know how many people can survive the 2 formation tests in a row. The test of a direct disciple, the 2 formations are superimposed, and the difficulty increases exponentially. There must be only a handful of people who can pass the test of a direct disciple. The 2 of them stood on the mountainside and looked down. The first to undergo the test were the 20 or 30 people who chose to become registered disciples. These 20 or 30 people entered from the mountain gate archway, climbed the first step, and the 5 elements formation was set up. In a flash before their eyes, the environment suddenly changed. It was originally a mountain climbing staircase, but it turned into an endless desert of yellow sand. The sun was shining brightly in the sky, and the ground was as hot as a soldering iron. In just a few moments, many people began to sweat. After the yellow sand passed, there were raging fires, abyss, vast seas, mountains of swords, and dense forests, supplemented by gravity suppression, all of which came in turn. Looking down from Zhao Yu's perspective, the 20 or 30 people started climbing up the stairs. The first 10 steps were fast at first, but after the 10th step, the speed slowed down. At the same time, the team gradually became looser. It was very compact before, but gradually turned into a long queue, with echelons divided. Zhao Yu said to John calmly, "How many of this group are your people?" "About half." John said, "They are all civilian personnel." "I see." Zhao Yu nodded slightly. "It seems that not many of these people can survive the test." John smiled. "They were just trying." Suddenly he asked, "Mr. Zhao, we have done some research on your resume. 2 or 3 months ago, you were just a... Sorry, may I know what happened?" "You were wrong." Zhao Yu said. "What you can investigate is what I want you to know." "That's all." John nodded, not surprised. The White House think tank has long come to this result, and he is just asking about it now to kill time. The 2 were chatting, and at some point, Magneto and Ben and his wife also arrived next to them. John might recognize Magneto. His pupils shrank slightly and he called politely, "Mr. Eric." Magneto only gave him a cold look without even nodding his head. John greeted the couple again, and then joked, "Mr. Magneto is still so cold. I wonder how Mr. Zhao arranged for Mr. Magneto." Zhao Yu smiled and said, "Eric is already a member of my sect, and will stay in my Tai cave from now on, guarding the scripture tower. Mr. John doesn't have to worry about him going out to stir up trouble." Magneto snorted coldly, pretending not to hear him. A smile flashed in John's eyes. Magneto has always been an enemy of the government, and he often does extraordinary things secretly, but he is strong enough that the government can do nothing about it. But now look at Magneto, he has become a gatekeeper for others, the difference is really... They look tired, May suddenly said. Ben responded, "Formation. Zhao's formation is magical. Maybe they are experiencing something we can't see." Zhao Yu nodded with a smile. The first level of the 5 elements formation is a comprehensive test of people's perseverance. For ordinary people, not 1 of 1,000 people can pass. These 20 or 30 people are much stronger than ordinary people. But in my opinion, it would be very good if 5 people can pass the test. The final result was not even what Zhao Yu had expected. 3 people. Among the 20 or 30 people who chose to become registered disciples, only 3 climbed up to Zhao Yu. Zhao Yu didn't pay much attention to these 3 people. He only asked their names and let them rest aside. Among these 3 people, 2 are from S.H.I.E.L.D. and 1 is from the government. Their identities determine that Zhao Yu will not take them seriously. Unless, of course, they become a hit in the future. But that's the treatment of the protagonist, and I'm afraid they won't have that chance. As for those who failed the test, they were directly sent out of the cave by Harry. The next thing to be done is the personal disciple test. 2 formations superimposed. Its difficulty has increased exponentially. This is also the reason why Zhao Yu does not have much confidence in whether he can receive direct disciples in this first test of recruiting disciples. Of course, there were still a few of them that made Zhao Yu look slightly sideways. For example, Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. When it comes to this person's perseverance, Zhao Yu is certain. As for whether you have the heart to follow the Tao, it depends on God's will. There are two others, one is a blind man, and Zhao Yu also knows his identity, Daredevil Matt Murdock. The other is Frank Custer, the Punisher. The reason why these two people attracted Zhao Yu's attention was not only because they had the luck of being superheroes, but also because they did not belong to any political force. In addition, there were 4 people from S.H.I.E.L.D. who Zhao Yu took a second look at. Phil Coulson, Nick Fury's right-hand man. His always gentle and harmless appearance makes him quite approachable. Maria Hill, the big beauty, Fury's other arm. Although he is a civilian, he is also quite heroic, and his physical fitness is no worse than that of a senior agent. Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, a sharp knife in Fury's hand. Hawkeye Clint Barton, Fury's other sharp knife. Zhao Yu looked at these people, and his mind moved slightly. He had already thought about the laws of the cave, and was distracted by the formation, observing them from the perspective of God. These people are not unknown people in the Marvel world. They all have good fortune. If they are accepted as disciples, whether they are direct disciples or registered disciples, it is a sure profit for Zhao Yu. However, Zhao Yu did not intend to take them all under his sect as his direct disciples. The direct disciples are not ordinary people. It's okay to be a named disciple. Of course, if they can all pass the test, it doesn't hurt to accept them. But where is it so easy? As members of the future Avengers, Natasha and Barton are of high quality and have a certain possibility of passing the test. As for Hill and Coulson, their physical fitness is that of ordinary people. At most, because they are agents, they can compare to those of special forces, and that's about it. As for Fury, he seems to have been injected with some kind of medicine and is in good physical condition, but his identity determines that he cannot become Zhao Yu's personal disciple. Even if it was possible for him to pass, Zhao Yu would not let him pass. Zhao Yu didn't care about the others. Even if there are lurkers from Hydra or other forces among them, Zhao Yu will still accept them as long as they cannot be discovered by Zhao Yu and can pass the test. Of course, it is impossible to be a direct disciple, but it is possible to be a registered disciple. The government and S.H.I.E.L.D. can accept it, why can't others? Zhao Yu had many means of coercion to make them obey. In fact, from Zhao Yu's perspective, as long as it can bring him luck, it is worth accepting. From this perspective, no matter how vicious the villain is, he still has value. However, the positioning of Tai sect made Zhao Yu decide to only accept white and most gray guys. As for the black guys, they have their own place to go. More than 100 people participated in the test of direct disciples, and their progress was slower than that of the 20 or 30 people who participated in the test of registered disciples before. And much slower. The superposition of formations, the double test, the all-round torture from the body to the soul, is naturally not simple. Seeing that the whole morning has passed, the fastest of these people will only be able to climb the 200 steps. There are only 9 people in the first echelon. Matt Murdock, Frank Custer, Nick Fury, Natasha Romanoff, Hawkeye Barton, Coulson and Hill are already behind, 2 from the government, and 2 more a person who participates in the entry test as an individual. These 2 are all acquaintances, and among them is Cindy Moon, a girl who admires Peter and has been practicing on the farm for a while with Mary and Jessica. As the most inconspicuous girl in the first echelon, with the most ordinary status and the most ordinary physique, it is extremely rare for her to be able to reach this point. Seeing that she was struggling but persisting, Zhao Yu decided to give her some water. The last one is Logan. Wolverine. Among the X-Men, he is the only one here today. Others are nowhere to be seen. It seems that Professor Charles failed to stop the wolf. But Zhao Yu didn't care either. Professor Charles is, as Raven said, stubborn. But no matter how stubborn you are, there is nothing you can do in the face of the general trend. Maybe it can be suppressed temporarily, but it is certain that more and more mutants will join Tai sect in the future. At this point, it can be seen that those who can become Zhao Yu's personal disciples are among the 9 people in the first echelon. Which ones will it be in the end? Except for Cindy, who Zhao Yu plans to release, I am afraid we will have to wait until the evening to find out. By this time, 20 or 30 people had been eliminated. Those who have not climbed the 150 steps and are unconscious and unable to survive are all losers. Only those who have climbed the 150 steps are qualified to become registered disciples. Those who successfully climb to the finish line are the direct disciples. At noon, May made lunch, and Zhao Yu treated John and the three first batch of people who successfully became registered disciples to a simple meal. Nothing to say all afternoon. In the evening, when the sun was about to set, the first person who came to Zhao Yu appeared, Natasha Romanov. This was somewhat beyond Zhao Yu's expectation. He originally thought it should be Wolverine. However, Wolverine is still about 10 steps away from success at this time. In fact, with Wolverine's self-healing ability, the test of perseverance is definitely not a problem for him. However, Wolverine's brain was injured, and when he tortured his soul, his brain was confused and he encountered great obstacles. However, Zhao Yu connected the formation and saw that Wolverine's memory was revived in the process. Torturing his soul, Wolverine recovered the suppressed and forgotten memories deep in his soul. Zhao Yu also sighed slightly in his heart. Many superheroes in the Marvel world are actually poor people. Raven helped Natasha aside and handed her an energy pill and a glass of water. This is the treatment of direct disciples. Registered disciples do not have Jingqi pills for them to consume for free. I feel like I have lost consciousness. Natasha slumped. If possible, I would rather fight 100 wars. But you made it, didn't you? Raven and Natasha are both women, born with the same affinity, and now they have become senior sisters. They had some communication when they came in before, so they became familiar with each other in a short time. Natasha took the essence pill, but within a moment, she was still mentally exhausted, but her physical strength had recovered. She was not surprised by this, because S.H.I.E.L.D. had obtained an energy pill and studied it specifically. When she came in before, she had also asked Harry and Peter in a roundabout way, and they had a rough idea. After Natasha, the second person to climb the ladder with difficulty was Daredevil Matt Murdock. In Zhao Yu's opinion, Daredevil's mind is relatively pure. Because of his physical defects, his soul is stronger than that of ordinary people. If it weren't for the fact that Natasha had been injected with the abridged version of the super soldier serum, which made her physically stronger than Daredevil and mentally weak, perhaps she would have fallen behind Matt. After Matt, the remaining people in the first echelon are still 10 steps away. Like Fury, who has fallen beyond the 30 steps and seems to have no chance. After about 10 minutes, the third person to successfully climb to the finish line was Cindy. This girl is actually tougher than most agents, special soldiers who have gone through rigorous training, and even people who have been injected with strengthening drugs. Even with Zhao Yu's intervention, it's incredible that she could reach this point. You know, although Zhao Yu released some water, he didn't release too much. His direct disciples can't be idiots. Just look at the look in John's eyes. There were so many agents and special forces who couldn't even climb half of the stairs, but this girl made it to the end. How amazing this is. Zhao Yu also looked at her with admiration. Perhaps this girl is the most valuable to cultivate among these direct disciples. Zhao Yu looked at the other people in the first echelon who were right in front of him, all within 30 or 40 steps, and sighed slightly in his heart. Although this test method seems simple, it is actually difficult. So many people, especially most of the first echelon, are almost all lucky people, but it seems that there is only one Wolverine left who is still struggling. I think so. Thinking about how the holy man has only been a disciple for countless years, you can see how high his requirements are in this regard. This formation was performed casually by the possessed saint, but the difficulty was all round. Zhao Yu thought, maybe the disciple's entrance test formation could be useful to him too. Perhaps it would be a good choice to take the time to hone one's Taoist mind using formations. As expected by Zhao Yu, the last person to successfully reach the finish line and come to Zhao Yu was Wolverine Logan. He climbed up, breathed for a moment, and quickly recovered. His ability indeed makes ordinary people jealous. At this point, Tai Sect's first formal entrance test to recruit disciples has come to a successful conclusion. It's a pity, Zhao Yu said to John. No one from your government made it to the end. John shrugged. Fair test, their ability is not enough, this can't be blamed on anyone. In the government, only one person climbed to the final stage by his own ability, but unfortunately he fell short in the end. This man's name is Emil Blonsky. and he is a special forces soldier who is nearly 30 years old. The way John looked at this man changed slightly. Even if he didn't make it to the end, he was close. This was a very good soldier, no doubt. Maybe it can be reused. As for Shield's Fury, he was about the same as Emil and both fell in the final stages. And Frank the Punisher, too. So far, Zhao Yu has received a total of 4 direct disciples. According to the chronological order of successfully climbing the ladder, Natasha is the 5th disciple, Matt is the 6th disciple, Cindy is the 7th disciple, and Logan is the last. There are 26 named disciples. Except for the 3 people in the first batch, there are only 23 people in the second batch who have climbed more than 150 steps, which is almost a lot different from what Zhao Yu had guessed earlier. 13 of these 23 people are from S.H.I.E.L.D., including their director, Coulson, and Hill. 8 are from the U.S. government, and the remaining 2 are not affiliated with any official organization. There are 4 direct disciples and 26 named disciples of the 4 major new disciples. We have just rounded up the number, which is 30, among which the only mutant is Wolverine Logan. This made Zhao Yu slightly disappointed. There were at least a dozen mutants who did not belong to the X-Men and the Brotherhood who appeared at the farm last night, but none of these 10 people came. Mutants must have been so suppressed by this society that they are all afraid of them. Zhao Yu secretly shook his head. Those who are afraid of hands and feet are not qualified to embark on the path of immortality. Afterwards, the 4 people completed the apprenticeship ceremony one by one in the sect hall and were each given a title. The 4th disciple Ruiwen was named Tianling, the 5th disciple Natasha was named Tianying, the 6th disciple Matt was named Tianming, the 7th disciple Cindy the name is Tianshuan, the 8th disciple Luo Zhen is named Tiandu. Hachan Fu Tony, Tianyang Peter, Tiany Harry, and the 8 direct disciples of Zhao Yu each have their own names, and this is how the sect came to be. As for the 26 named disciples, they all bowed to Zhao Yu and decided on their names. As for the names, Zhao Yu simply ignored them. As a witness, Senator John witnessed the process of everyone's apprenticeship, and then left the cave. Presumably he won't be able to rest tonight, he has many reports to make at the White House and Congress. During the time when he was testing his disciples, Tony also did his own thing well. All the tools needed by the sect are in place. It's already dark outside. Although there is no cycle of day and night in the cave, you still have to eat when it's time to eat. It was not easy to get food. Even with the help of Raven, Natasha, Cindy and others, it took a long time to prepare meals for more than 30 people. After the meal, Zhao Yu gathered all his disciples in the martial arts field. He stood at the head with his hands behind his back. His temperament was majestic and elegant, as if he had descended from heaven. This sect is recruiting 26 registered disciples, he said with an indifferent look. Each of the registered disciples will be provided with 1 skill and 1 combat skill by the sect for free. Tomorrow morning, go to the Sutra Deposit Pagoda to pick one up. Within 2 months, no registered disciple is allowed to leave Tai Cave Heaven for any reason, and they must practice quietly and lay the foundation. Registered disciples receive 10 essence pills from the sect for free every month. If they want more pills to assist their cultivation, they must complete the sect's tasks and obtain the sect's contribution in exchange for the pills. After 2 months, those who cannot weigh more than a kilogram will have to behave normally. Those who do not comply with the sect's rules will be deprived of their status as registered disciples and expelled from the sect. A group of registered disciples were silent, solemnly and very seriously memorizing every sentence and word Zhao Yu said. No one raised any objection. Even in compulsory schools, it is impossible for everything to be free and everything to be provided. Zhao Yu's various requirements and restrictions were considered normal and understandable to them. In the past 2 months, for the first 10 days, registered disciples will study Chinese and Chinese characters with the teacher from 8 a.m. to 12 o'clock every day. At the same time, the teacher will explain the basic points of cultivation to you. All kinds of exercises in our sect are based on Chinese culture as the foundation, but if you don't understand Chinese and don't know Chinese characters, there will be obstacles in practicing the exercises and it will be difficult to achieve success. 10 days later, from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I will study Chinese by myself. From 10 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the afternoon, except for lunch, eating and rest, it is all practice time. After 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you can make your own arrangements. Although you are only registered disciples, you are also the registered disciples of my Tai sect. You must abide by the sect's rules and teachings, educate all spirits, and save all living beings. You will not do evil, plunder, betray the sect, or harm fellow sects. Violators will be punished. Severe punishment will not be neglected. After saying this, Zhao Yu waved his hand and went to arrange accommodation with 26 named disciples. The sect only has 5 courtyards and 50 rooms in total, including the 4 former direct disciples. Now the 8 direct disciples each have 1 room, occupying the second courtyard. My wife and I occupy courtyard number 1, and registered disciples are not eligible to live in the same courtyard as my direct disciples and myself and my wife. Therefore, there are 30 rooms in courtyards number 3, 4, and 5 for 26 registered disciples. Disciple accommodation. Not crowded at all. Of course, these are not among Zhao Yu's considerations. Even if the accommodation is not enough, it is appropriate for 3 or 2 people to live in one room. They are here to practice, not to enjoy. If you want to live well, then leave here and go to Hilton, some of which have presidential suites. After simply sending away the registered disciples, there were only 8 direct disciples left in the field. Headed by Tony, they went from left to right, and finally Logan. Looking at these direct disciples, Zhao Yu's eyes softened a lot. You are the direct disciples of my master, and your status in this sect is completely different from the registered disciples. The direct disciples are the disciples of my master, and you and I are also our masters. As a father, you are also a disciple and a son to me. Although you get started at different times, and the way you get started is different, I hope that you can truly love each other and help each other. No matter what your original identity is, whether it is a genius scientist, entrepreneur, shield agent, super, whether you're a hero or a mutant, it's all the same here as your master. Teachers treat everyone equally. A group of people waited in silence. Your senior brother, second senior brother, third senior brother, and fourth senior sister have not gone through the entrance test. But it does not mean that they will never have to go through it. As a master, you 4 have to pass the formation test after tomorrow. That's right, otherwise the junior brothers and sisters would be dissatisfied and blame the teacher for not being able to hold a bowl of water evenly. Tony's expression changed and he shouted strangely, "Master, everything is over, let's forget it." He saw with his own eyes those guys who were physically stronger than him, falling on the road one by one, and it was terrifying to think about it. Especially you, Tony. Zhao Yu glared at him. As a senior brother, how can you convince the public if you don't pass the test? Tony suddenly looked sad. Of course, Zhao Yu said again. You have all become my master's direct disciples, and you don't have to worry about being expelled from the master if you fail to pass it once. But if you fail once, you can do it twice. When you pass, you can let me. Teacher is satisfied. Tony was relieved. The other 3 nodded in unison, indicating that it was no problem. Zhao Yu nodded and suddenly sighed slightly. In today's universe, there is a world of great strife. There are many fights and killings, and the order is gradually collapsing. Although the Earth is remote, it is just a speck of dust in the universe. It does not seem to be the same. It attracts attention, but, under the general trend, how could it not be affected? It is for this reason that I came out as a teacher. Otherwise, I would be alone, without worries or troubles, and be free. Wouldn't it be carefree? I established this Tai sect and accepted you as my disciples in order to educate all spirits and save all sentient beings. Whether you are agents, heroes or entrepreneurs, or ordinary people, you need order. From this aspect, you are destined to me, and it is natural for you to join my sect. Since you join our sect, you should uphold the sect's teachings. Do not betray the master, do not harm fellow sects, do not kill innocent people indiscriminately, do not rape and plunder, do more righteous things, practice more diligently, and live a long life with you in the future. Heaven and earth are together. At this point, Zhao Yu's expression changed and he revealed a hint of coldness. But if someone violates the sect's teachings and kills indiscriminately and commits evil, please don't let me know about it. At the very least, he will be escorted back to the sect to reflect on his mistakes, or he will be abolished. Cultivation is to expel the sect, but more important is to clean up the sect personally as a master. His voice was stern and he said every word. I hope you will remember it carefully, otherwise it will be too late to regret it. All the disciples suddenly fell silent. Even the unruly Wolverine and Tony, who had always been carefree, had serious expressions on their faces and did not dare to look sideways. Zhao Yu nodded slightly and said in a slower tone, "It is precisely because you are my master's direct disciples that my master has such strict requirements on you. Otherwise, like those registered disciples, would my master pay much attention to them?" He exhaled slightly. "As direct disciples, you have the best cultivation methods, the most abundant resources, and the guidance of teachers. How much higher is your starting line than them? If so, there are still people. If it doesn't work, I have nothing to say as a teacher. For registered disciples, being a teacher is in the capacity of a teacher and using the school's rules. But for you, being a teacher does not make rigid rules. What you should do every day and what you need is up to you. The road to the great road, I am just your guide. I cannot interfere with what path you will eventually take. Everyone is different, and you are even more different. The master introduces the door, and cultivation depends on the individual. Now, follow me to the apse." The 8 disciples, you look at me, I look at you, they followed Zhao Yu silently and step by step to the back hall. Zhao Yu sat down on the futon in the hall, waved his hand, and asked the disciples to sit on the ground and form a half circle. "Teacher, teach the teachings," Zhao Yu said. "Your senior brother to 4th senior sister have already been taught the skills for a long time. Now, the new disciples will come forward one by one in order." Natasha then stood up and stepped forward. Zhao Yu pointed at the center of her eyebrows and poured the Chunyang body refining fist into her mind. After Natasha opened her eyes after a moment of recollection, Zhao Yu said, "My teacher knows Tianying's origins. In his early years, he was an agent of the KGB of the former Soviet Union. For various reasons, he betrayed the KGB and joined SHIELD to date." Natasha pursed her lips. "As an agent, your mind is complex and dark. This is a big taboo in the beginning of practice. It will make it difficult for you to devote yourself to practice wholeheartedly. Too many distracting thoughts will make it difficult for you to enter concentration. I would like to give you a few words of advice here. Now that you have entered the teacher's sect and embarked on the path of pursuing the Tao, everything in the past has disappeared. As direct disciples, you must stay in the cave for the first 3 months. Take this opportunity to meditate and read more Taoism. Classics can purify the soul. If you can get rid of dark and distracting thoughts, your future will be limitless." "Thank you, Master, I will remember it." Natasha felt moved and bowed very solemnly. "Yes." Zhao Yu rolled his sleeves. "Reading more Taoist scriptures can cleanse the mind and make the mind clear and calm, but the prerequisite is to learn Chinese well first. I hope you will not disappoint me as a teacher." Natasha looked determined. "I will never let Master down." After waving Natasha away, Zhao Yu waved Matt forward. After passing on the Dharma first, he said, "My teacher also knows about your previous life experience. Your physical condition is special, but you are blind, but your mind is clear and you are not lost. I am very happy. Love, hate, and hatred are intertwined with each other, so that you end up on the superhero path. My teacher is not against you being a superhero, either in the past or in the future. After all, it is good that you have not embarked on a sinful path. Just like your second senior brother Peter, he is now a black man, and you must have the same. I heard it. Acting chivalrously and helping others is a way to save all sentient beings, which is in line with the teachings of our Tai sect. I hope you can always uphold your persistence. Only with persistence can life be meaningful. When we cultivate the Tao, we must also persistence. You must have an obsession, otherwise you will get lost in a long time. My teacher is very happy to see that each of you has your own persistence. As long as you don't do evil, everything will be done by my teacher and the sect. I have my back behind you. Tianming's physical condition is different from that of your other senior brothers and sisters. Although you have no vision, it makes your soul purer. In the future, your path can be biased towards this aspect. Of course, you can still mourning. After training the body and building the foundation, I will make my own arrangements for the teacher. After the 6th child, Matt, is the girl named Cindy Moon, the 7th child. You are different from them. Zhao Yu said with a smile. Among your senior brothers and sisters, except maybe Peter, everyone else is very different from you. But I am very optimistic about you. Cindy smiled and narrowed her eyes, very happy. She couldn't help but glance at Peter secretly, her face blushing a little. Zhao Yu couldn't help but laugh when he saw this. Your senior brother, second senior brother, third senior brother and fourth senior sister, the four of them are destined to meet each other and have not experienced today's test. But in today's test, any other one has a better foundation than you. Strong. However, you still succeeded. This is extremely rare. There are no special requirements for you as a teacher. The path of cultivation is up to you to choose. After building the foundation, you can choose whatever you like. You must choose boldly. Go boldly. Yes. Cindy's eyes turned red. Thank you, Master. After Cindy, there is Logan, the 8 heavenly capital. Among the 8 sect members, Tiandu is the oldest. He is also the only mutant. Zhao Yu taught him the skills and said, you were born in the 19th century. You experienced family changes when you were young, and you participated in World War I and World War II. Having traveled to most corners of the world, it can be said that your experience is the richest among you. However, in this process, you have lost a lot, including your memory. But I know that your memory is still there. You have recovered from the mental torture during the test just now. I believe that you must be very excited now, and maybe you want to go out immediately to find those lost things or people that are important to you. Logan opened his mouth, not knowing what to say. He has always had an unruly temper, otherwise he wouldn't be called Wolverine. There is a kind of wolfishness and a kind of unruliness. But let alone humans, even real wolves sometimes tuck their tails between their legs. Having witnessed Zhao Yu's power with his own eyes, that kind of divine power left a deep mark on his soul. In front of Zhao Yu, Wolverine could only suppress his wolfish nature. Otherwise, he would have run out of the cave screaming and cursing by now. I can tell you that your son with that Japanese woman is still alive, and I can also tell you where the saber-toothed tiger is now. But I hope you can calm down and stay here safely for 3 months. After so many years, 3 months is not long. And during these 3 months, you must forget all distracting thoughts and practice wholeheartedly. Your mutant ability is very special. Self-healing and longevity are very different from ordinary abilities. However, mutants have innate limitations on their mutant abilities. Indeed, self-healing ability can ensure your survival in the face of extremely harsh environments. But when this ability cannot be controlled freely, it tends to refresh independently, making your exercise worthless. Otherwise, as you are nearly 200 years old, after so many hardships, your body should be incomparable. It's good to be powerful, but in fact, your body is still the same as when you awakened your ability. People say your ability is immortality, but look at you now, you look like you are 30 or 40 years old. And you awakened your ability, your face will definitely look younger than this time. It's just because of your self-healing ability that your aging becomes slower, but you are not immortal. This is an obstacle in the early stages of practice. It will refresh your practice results and instantly return you to the way you were before practice. Therefore, I want to seal your self-healing ability. After you complete the foundation building, you can advance to practice. Only when you can master your own abilities can you unlock the seal. As he spoke, Zhao Yu took out a ring from his palm and handed it to Logan. Put it on. Wolverine's self-healing ability also has hidden dangers. When he was injured, his body healed itself crazily, which was actually an overdraft of his potential. This ability must be sealed until it can be controlled freely. Logan silently took the ring and put it on his middle finger. Suddenly, he felt as if he had lost something. I felt very lost, a feeling of emptiness. This is a sealing ring worth 800 luck points. It was a magic weapon that Zhao Yu specially exchanged to assist Luo Zhen in his cultivation. It's a magic weapon, not a magic weapon. Although it has a single function and is not expensive, it is a magic weapon after all. It will not eliminate Luo Zhen's ability, but it will seal it to prevent this ability from hindering Luo Zhen's practice. With just this move, the luck value contributed by his disciple Logan was directly returned to him. Zhao Yu still has high expectations for Luo General. The ability of self-healing can also be obtained through practice, and even rebirth with blood is not a problem, but just like Zhao Yu himself, there is still a long way to go before he can practice to have the self-healing ability of Luo General. Zhao Yu spent some time consulting the luck value system, and based on what the system said, he arranged the direction of Luo Zhen's cultivation. During the foundation building stage of body training, his self-healing ability must be sealed, otherwise it will remain the same as it was after practicing over and over again, and it will never be possible to complete the foundation building. According to the explanation given by the system, Logan must refine his magic power, refine his abilities, and be able to freely control his self-healing ability before he can unblock it. At the very least, they must enter the chi refining stage. In the refining stage, with mana, a powerful physical body, and the ability to control self-healing, Logan can be used as a sharp knife for the sect. It can't be beaten to death, but it can also kill people. How useful is it? Or it can be called the protector of the sect. Just like Yang Jian is to Taoism and Monkey is to Buddhism. Of course, Zhao Yu actually has a better candidate for the sect's guardian, banner. But now it seems that the Hulk has not yet appeared, or it may have appeared before Zhao Yu traveled through time, but was suppressed and is now hiding abroad and cannot be found. In addition, Zhao Yu still has doubts about whether the Hulk can become an immortal. His abilities are not innate, unlike mutants' blood abilities. He is not sure that after Banner becomes an immortal, he will be even more powerful when he transforms into the Hulk. Maybe it's just useless in the end, so I'll suppress it for now and talk about it later when I encounter it. Very good. Zhao Yu nodded slightly. I have high expectations for you as a teacher. If you can fully control your abilities and practice to a certain level, you will have few opponents. After you complete the foundation building, you will refine. My master will help you refine your self-healing power, so that you can control it freely, when the sea is wide enough for fish to leap, and the sky is high enough for birds to fly. After giving the initiation and teaching of Chunyang body refining fist to each disciple one by one, and each expressing their own expectations and encouragement, the way this group of disciples looked at Zhao Yu was completely different from before. At least it's not unfamiliar anymore. At this time, Zhao Yu said, "The Chunyang body refining fist taught to you by my master is different from other techniques in the Tibetan Sutra Pagoda. This is the core introductory technique for direct disciples of our sect. Registered disciples are not qualified to practice unless they have made great contributions. This technique is peaceful, and it is the most mysterious among all the foundation building techniques. After you practice it, your ability will be far superior to the registered disciples who practice other techniques. You must remember that you are not allowed to nod for the master, and you must not teach it to anyone at will, people." Of course, this skill was inherited by Zhao Yu in the form of initiation. Unless you have perfected your cultivation and have a thorough understanding, you cannot put it on paper or speak it orally. Zhao Yu said this just to vaccinate them. After all, some of these direct disciples have some special identities. All the disciples nodded in unison and made a pledge. After teaching the skills and encouraging them, the robes were handed out. After completing the mission earlier and exchanging the skills directly, Zhao Yu only had a little over 1,000 luck points left in his hand. However, having recruited so many disciples today, especially those with good luck, Zhao Yu suddenly became richer again. The 4 new direct disciples, the ones with the most luck, contributed 800 luck points, such as Logan, Natasha and Matt, and even Cindy contributed 500. Of course, Wolverine's contribution, a sealing ring, was returned to him. The 4 direct disciples alone have gained nearly 3,000 luck points. In addition to the 26 named disciples, including people like Fury and Frank, there are hundreds each, and more or less others, and the total contribution is not less than the contribution of the 4 direct disciples. In total, there are more than 3,000. In other words, Zhao Yu now has more than 6,000 luck points in his hands. 4 robes, no big deal. Afterwards, everyone got a robe, and Zhao Yu explained the function of the robe. The disciples were overjoyed and each shed blood to recognize the master, like Cindy, who was having a great time. "All right," Zhao Yu smiled and waved his hand, "we have to wait and see. The registered disciples are only in Dongtian for 2 months, and you are in Dongtian for 3 months. There are some of you with more special status, and there are also special people among the registered disciples. I'll give you a day off as a teacher, go back tomorrow and make some arrangements, and then come back immediately." As he spoke, he waved his hand and branded the 4 of them with the Dongtian mark. With the Cave Heaven brand, you can enter and leave the Cave Heaven at will. However, I want to warn you that you must not bring in irrelevant people at will. Do you remember it? Remember. Very good, Zhao Yu said with a flick of his sleeves. In addition, I don't want to talk about the benefits of you as direct disciples. After you go down, ask your senior brothers and sisters to step back." After swiping away the 8 direct disciples, Zhao Yu let out a long breath. To be honest, he himself was a little uncomfortable. Every word he said was pretending to be an expert and was deceptive. At first it was interesting, but later it became a bit unpleasant. He prefers to practice quietly alone and quietly comprehend the mysteries of the technique. If there was no force from the system, Zhao Yu would even find a remote place in the mountain to continue practicing, and would never show up unless necessary. This is a mentality of casual cultivators, but after establishing a sect, this mentality must be changed. After changing his mind and cutting off the stray thoughts in his heart, Zhao Yu closed his eyes slightly, and the magic power of the 3-yuan reunification qi method in his body quickly began to circulate, complementing and promoting each other with the true form of chaos, and the palace fell into silence. Why do I find that Master seems to be becoming more and more dignified? A group of 8 people came out of the back hall and couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Facing Zhao Yu, they felt very depressed, whether it was when he was stern or gentle. Just like Peter said, Master is becoming more and more majestic. Tony shrugged. Anyway, I didn't dare to speak just now. I was afraid that as soon as I spoke, he would slap me. I, the dignified president of Stark Group, would be slapped to the ground. It was so embarrassing. Quote. Shish. Harry quickly put his finger to his mouth. Be careful, Master hears. Tony immediately shut up. When the others saw this, they couldn't help but laugh. For a time, the atmosphere became much more relaxed. Look, Tony laughed. My efforts were not in vain, right? Everyone laughed. Tony, Natasha spoke at this time. You know, we later, and Master only met for the second time at most. We didn't know him well. What kind of person was he? He's always been like this. Can this put pressure on people? Tony shrugged. Anyway, that's how he always made me feel. Peter shook his head. Master is usually very gentle and easy to get along with. Although he often slaps me on the back of the head, I don't think it's okay. He is different today. Maybe it's because he officially accepts a disciple today, which is more formal, right? Everyone will know in the future. Harry nodded in deep understanding. You two are kissing. Tony curled his lips. Anyway, he never gave me a good look. Master said that was a spur to you. Peter chuckled. He said that you are too conceited and you are not doing anything right, so you should be suppressed. Tony spread his hands and said nothing. What about the benefits? Natasha asked again. Elixirs. Peter said. Isn't it 10 pills a month for registered disciples? If we want essence pills, it's 100 pills a month. There are also better intermediate pills and high-grade pills, which are 30 grains and 10 grains. Harry added. Maybe people don't know the function of elixirs. Just like the essence elixir, if you are not a cultivator, after taking it, it will make people energetic. But we cultivators must make rapid progress, and the elixir's assistance is indispensable. Without the pills, the cultivation speed will be at least 5 times slower. Even though Peter has reached the 5th level of pure yang body refining fist, he has consumed quite a few essence pills. Oh, the new junior brothers and sisters suddenly understood. Now they fully understood the difference between direct disciples and registered disciples. Not to mention the skills, just the robes and elixirs alone left the registered disciples in the nooks and crannies of the mountain. For a time, everyone was very happy. Along the way to the accommodation area, everyone gradually became familiar with each other and chatted in 2s and 3s. Several women chatted together, and Tony was humorous from time to time, which caused bursts of laughter, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. That night, many people didn't sleep well. They were either looking forward to the future or making secret plans. And Zhao Yu was also busy for half the night. He copied many of the exercises and spells that he had deduced through the divine light of the 5 elements in the state of divine possession into books, and spent nearly 1,000 luck points to exchange dozens and hundreds of low-level skills from the system. At the expense of abandoning the core of these techniques, the mysterious light group, and turning them into a book. If he absorbs the core secrets, Zhao Yu must practice all these techniques to perfection before he can copy them. Although for him now, he can master several low-level techniques in one day, but isn't that necessary? What's the use of having too many inferior skills? As for some of the methods derived from the three elements returning to one qi refining method in the state of divine possession, Zhao Yu thought about it and did not intend to copy it out for the time being. The method of refining qi by refining three elements into one is his fundamental method, which is of great significance. This is one of them. Secondly, this supreme method is so mysterious that if it is copied at this stage, it would be impossible for the disciples to practice it based on their Han cultural background. Another 100 luck points were spent on dozens of Tao Te Ching and other Taoist scriptures. These Taoist scriptures do not have core mysteries in the redemption items, or in other words, the core mysteries of the Taoist scriptures are too precious. If you understand all the Taoist scriptures, this person should be able to realize the Tao soon. Therefore it can be realized directly. There are more than 200 kinds of exercises and spells, dozens of Taoist scriptures, a lot. Zhao Yu spent another 500 luck points to exchange for the lowest Chenkin bag, and put these exercises and scriptures into the bag with a flick of his sleeves. Turning around and stepping through the void, we arrived at the Buddhist scripture pagoda. Zhao Yu walked into the scripture depository tower and saw Magneto resting nearby, so he woke him up, shook his hands and took out the various exercises and Taoist scriptures at the foundation building level into categories, and piled them into several piles, asking Magneto to sort them out according to different categories, placed in different areas. Zhao Yu himself climbed up the scripture pagoda for the second time. By inferring the 5 elements primordial magnetic divine light, there are dozens of exercises and spells in the qi refining stage. These are the methods of the qi refining stage, and of course they cannot be placed on the first level. Zhao Yu has now actually entered the 5th level of qi refining, not to mention the physical realm, but the magical realm. The magic power produced by the 3 Yuan Gui Yi qi refining method is extremely powerful. If you add in the 6th level of the mortal body, ordinary monks, under the transformation of gods, no one can be his opponent. After all kinds of skills were properly disposed, Zhao Yu didn't bother to leave the scripture deposit tower, so he sat down on the first floor and silently transferred the magic power. Magneto, on the other hand, was holding a book of exercises and savoring them carefully. This old guy actually knows Chinese. But there is nothing surprising. Magneto is also a person who has traveled around the world. It is not surprising that he can speak Chinese. At 8 o'clock in the morning, all the registered disciples went to the Sutra Tibetan Pagoda together. Under Zhao Yu's guidance, they spent half an hour each choosing a technique and a combat technique. At 8:30, everyone gathered in the martial arts arena. Zhao Yu sat cross-legged and taught them a Chinese lesson. The textbook used is the Tao Te Ching. After the Chinese class ended, at 12 o'clock, Fury and other people with special status outside left the cave. They will stay here for 2 months and must make some arrangements outside. As for the 8 direct disciples, except for Peter who has reached the 5th level of Chunyang body refining fist and does not need to stay in the cave all the time, the others will stay together for a period of time. After the 4-hour Chinese class on the Tao Te Ching and the explanation of the basic knowledge of cultivation in the morning, during the afternoon practice time, Zhao Yu threw all the disciples to Peter and Harry. Let Peter be responsible for teaching the direct disciples to practice the routines, while Harry will guide the registered disciples, mainly repeating some basic training knowledge. After all, many of them don't know Chinese yet, and the exercises they choose are generally different, so they have no way to start practicing. For this reason, Peter also had to take a break from school. As for Zhao Yu, there are more important things to do. Back hall, alchemy room. Ben took action on the side. Zhao Yu sat in front of the alchemy furnace. While distractedly watching the fire of the alchemy furnace, he tapped the body of the furnace regularly, pumping wisps of mana into the alchemy furnace, and combined with the fire of the alchemy furnace to prepare refined pills. As time passed, a very thin ray of alchemy energy floated out from the hole in the lid of the alchemy furnace. Zhao Yu sniffed it slightly, and finally a smile appeared on his face. The lingering elixir energy is a sign that the elixir pills have been successfully refined. Before this furnace of elixirs, Zhao Yu had already failed 2 furnaces. Although he used the power of divine possession to fully understand a volume of the Alchemy Sutra, he still understood it, and it was just talk on paper. In practice, he made mistakes because of his lack of experience. Fortunately, there were only 2 mistakes, and the 3rd time it was successful. Open the jade box, Zhao Yu said hurriedly. Ben quickly opened a foot-long jade box in his hand. Then they saw Zhao Yu patting the furnace body, turning the furnace cover and flying to the side. Dan pills were sprayed out from the furnace mouth like beads on a chain. Zhao Yu flicked his sleeves and the pill fell into the jade box. 58 pills, still needs improvement. During this process, Zhao Yu had already figured out the quantity of finished pills in this furnace. Based on the amount of herbs put in, it should be normal to produce 100 pills, but only 58 pills were produced, which is almost half. He shook his head. Experience. Only if you are familiar with it. The more you do something, the more you become proficient at it, the better it will be. Then he made 2 more furnaces of essence pills, and the quantity produced in each furnace was getting closer and closer to the normal. One furnace was 65 pills, and the last furnace was 82 pills. Seeing that it was almost reaching the number of 100, Zhao Yu after a while, he nodded with satisfaction and was about to continue, but found that the medicinal materials were gone. Ben on the side looked apologetic. Sorry Zhao, I have used up the medicinal materials I collected in the morning. Zhao Yu regretfully stopped. Up to now, various medicinal materials that were moved to the medicinal fields below the mountainside during the renovation of the cave have gradually matured. Due to the urgent need for elixirs among his disciples, Zhao Yu had to refine elixirs. There is no Jingqi pill, so getting started is too slow. Maybe by the time of 2 or 3 months, not many people can meet Zhao Yu's requirements. The medicinal materials can be harvested only by one person, and the labor force is far from meeting the demand. According to the current monthly consumption of the sect's 26 named disciples and the 8 direct disciples, the sect's welfare alone requires more than 1,000 pills. In the future, the demand will be greater and greater. If we only rely on the few medicinal materials collected each time, the efficiency of alchemy will not be improved. Moreover, Zhao Yu was thinking that this matter cannot always be shouldered by him. He must cultivate disciples with talents in this area to do it for him. Of course, this is still early. Even if the essence pill is not high grade, it must have the magic power to be perfect. Refined. In other words, a disciple must advance to refine qi. Asking Ben to take the jade box containing the elixirs, Zhao Yu said, You, Mei, and Eric, the sect's elixir benefits for the 3 of you are based on the level of direct disciples, 100 essence elixirs per month. You take these elixirs to the service hall and find an opportunity to distribute them in the afternoon to meet the welfare needs of the registered disciples first. Ben nodded, but said, Me and Mei don't need that much. We are old and have no future in cultivation. Eric, on the other hand, is a mutant. Give him 100 pills and we will be like registered disciples. Take it. Zhao Yu smiled and shook his head. You are different. Just listen to me and do whatever I say. Ben laughed. Thank you. Zhao Yu waved his sleeves. I still need to trouble you about collecting the medicinal materials for the time being. Hold on for a month. When all the disciples get started next month, we will issue relevant tasks in the service hall and leave them to them. Ben nodded and did not object. After Ben left, Zhao Yu flipped his hands and took out a large bag as tall as a person. In this bag are the medicinal seeds needed for the 2 types of elixirs that were redeemed from the system when talking to Ben just now. Jing Qi pill, Blood Qi pill, and Shen Qi pill are the same series of pills. They are all low-grade pills. They are indispensable auxiliary pills in the bodybuilding stage. In the early stage of physical training, Jing Qi pill has the best effect, in the middle stage, Blood Energy pill has the best effect, and in the later stage, Shen Qi pill has the best effect. That is, the 3 stages of training to reach the first level of the mortal body. Zhao Yu himself had only used the Jingqi pill. His physique was so special that he had already broken through the first level of the mortal body before even using the latter 2 pills. But the disciples don't have the physique like him. In the early stage, Jingqi pill can meet the needs, but after the middle stage of physical training, the remaining 2 are more effective. For example, when Peter has reached the 5th level of Chunyang body refining boxing, the effect of Jingqi pill on him is getting smaller and smaller, and the latter 2 pills are necessary to keep him practicing at a considerable speed. Therefore, the medicinal materials required for these 2 elixirs must be prepared now. Just watching Zhao Yu open the bag, his expression moved slightly, and with the power of the cave, the seeds disappeared quickly, but the sowing was already completed. With the help of the power of the sacred possession, the cave sky was completely refined, and Zhao Yu was able to use the power of the cave sky at will. In fact, whether you sow or harvest, all it takes is a thought. But Zhao Yu didn't intend to do this. The seeds have just been sown because time is too tight and the needs are too urgent. It is impossible to wait until the disciples have started practicing in a month before issuing tasks for them to sow seeds. But this is just a special case. Whether it is me, my wife, or my disciples, we must find something for them to do in this cave. Take Ben, for example. If he is idle all day long, he may not feel comfortable. As for the disciples, when they get started in cultivation, they should balance work and rest, and occasionally change their minds. Furthermore, the construction of a sect is everyone's business. Since you join the sect, you must do something for the sect, even if it seems to make things complicated. Moreover, in this way, disciples can earn sect contributions and run the sect mission mode. Killing several birds with one stone and achieving multiple goals with one stone. In the following 10 days, Zhao Yu spent all his morning time with his disciples, giving them Chinese lessons and explaining the basics of cultivation. In the afternoon, he focused on refining elixirs. The number of elixirs produced every day increased from about 200 to more than 300. The rest of the time is spent on practicing. It only took less than 5 days for the disciples to have all the elixir benefits for the month. The remaining elixirs refined in the remaining 5 days were all stored for use next month or for him. After 10 days, Zhao Yu rarely appeared in front of the registered disciples. Except when his direct disciples have questions, they can come to him for advice at any time. At other times, he focuses on cultivation, either sitting quietly and transferring mana, or going to the top of the mountain to practice boxing or magic spells, or drawing talismans in the apps, or delving into alchemy, or exploring the method of refining weapons. Every day is full of time. Master said, "The dead are like this, day and night, and the peaceful time always passes very quickly. In the blink of an eye, it is 2 months." Chapter 71. In 2 months, Zhao Yu was satisfied with the cultivation progress of his disciples. Not to mention the direct disciples, just the named disciples, there are several who work extremely hard. Often when other disciples have taken a rest, they are still practicing martial arts and rehearsing combat skills over and over again in the martial arts arena. Even other people, when they should be cultivating, none of them pretended to be so. After all, most of these registered disciples have different identities, either special soldiers or agents. These people have a sense of crisis. When performing tasks, life or death is uncertain. Now there is an opportunity to make them stronger, and no one will take it lightly. Their hard work and seriousness have affected a few registered disciples who are not soldiers or agents, and then even direct disciples who have no special status. Although this atmosphere does not seem to match Shanman Xiaoyao, Zhao Yu agrees and lets it go. At the beginning of cultivation, you must work hard, otherwise you will not be as good as the threshold, and you will not see the immortal way. It stands to reason that people who work hard should be appreciated. But Zhao Yu discovered that one of the named disciples worked hard, but it was not a down-to-earth effort, but a desire for quick success. This person is extremely thirsty for power, and this desire has become somewhat blind and distorted, which is not a good thing. Effort is a good thing, but one must also work hard in a down-to-earth manner and with a correct mentality. Blindness and distortion can only ruin his future. This person is Bronsky, the only government special soldier who fell to the last dozen or so steps in the test of being a direct disciple. Seeing that tomorrow was the 2-month deadline for registered disciples, it was already evening, and Zhao Yu slowly came to the martial arts field. Bronsky was practicing his boxing skills alone. Zhao Yu could see at a glance that the set of the broken jade boxing fist he chose, which was wide open and closed, strong and violent, had been practiced to the point where he could enter the palace. The fists are whistling, whining and making sounds, they open and close widely, and they strike forcefully, yet they move smoothly, which is very remarkable. Among all the registered disciples, he is one of the few who has mastered his combat skills to the point of entering the palace in just 2 months. Normally at this time, there should be 2 or 3 people practicing hard here with him, but tomorrow is the 2-month deadline, and the other people went to rest early to recuperate for tomorrow's assessment. Only Bronsky is still practicing. Zhao Yu came to him quietly and said, "Stop first." Bronsky was startled for a moment, turned around and saw Zhao Yu, and bowed, "Master." Zhao Yu nodded. "You are very good. Of the 26 named disciples, you are the hardest working one. You have achieved great results in your practice until now. Except for Barton and Frank, no one of them is your opponent." When Bronsky heard this, a smile of recognition appeared on his face. But Zhao Yuha's voice changed and she said, "You have practiced the shattering jade fist in just 2 months to the point where you can enter the palace and enter the house. You can open monuments and crack rocks. You have also practiced the thick earth kung fu to the 2nd level. You can move your hands with a force of 2,000 kilograms. To be honest, if my direct disciples were not rich in resources, I am afraid that some of them would not be as good as you." But, Zhao Yu said this and shook his head. "My teacher can see that your desire for power has gone too far. Almost pathological." Bronsky's happy expression suddenly froze. "Master, is it wrong to work hard?" "No, there is nothing wrong with working hard." Zhao Yu sighed. "It is precisely because you work hard enough that I want to talk to you. The key point of our cultivation is to keep a God spirit calm, and you have to hold it within a certain degree. And you have passed. Effort is good, but pathological effort is a distortion of the mind. The mind cannot remain clear, and this will be your future path. The biggest obstacle." Zhao Yu stood with his hands behind his hands and walked slowly to the edge of the cliff. Bronsky followed him with a look of dissatisfaction on his face. "To put it bluntly, you are being extreme." Zhao Yu said calmly, "My teacher recommends that you read more Taoist scriptures and refine your mind. Put down your martial arts and combat skills first. When your mind is clear, it is not too late to practice." People like Bronsky are actually more suitable to practice magic skills. However, for those who are too extreme, it is easy to become a demon by practicing demonic skills, but it is difficult to enter the Tao. Even demonic monks first become possessed by demons, then break through them, and then enter Taoism. If Bronsky practices magic, he will definitely make rapid progress in the early stage, but after reaching a certain level, he will definitely encounter a huge bottleneck. If he can break through it, he will have a bright future. If he cannot, the inner demon will bite back, and the end can be imagined. "No. I have been observing you for a while." Zhao Yu turned his back to Bronsky. "You are very jealous of your direct disciples. Why is this?" "It's because they have more resources than you and their skills are better than yours." Bronsky was silent for a moment. "Yes, master. You are quite honest." Zhao Yu nodded. "But you have to know that you took part in the test together and you failed. This is your own fault." "But where are Tony Stark, Peter Parker, Harry Osborn and Raven?" He suddenly shouted excitedly. "They did not participate in the test with us. Although they made up for it later, but neither Harry nor Tony passed once. Why did you give them a chance and not me? Is it because Tony and Harry are rich? Are they monopoly?" Zhao Yu laughed. He turned to look at Bronsky, shook his head and sighed. "The cultivation of immortality is about fate. The 4 of them were accepted as disciples by chance before they were officially accepted as masters. People are different from each other. You can't compare yourself to them, you are you and they are them." At this point, he paused. "My teacher does not look down on you. If you can persevere while firming up your mind and maintaining clarity, it is not impossible that you will have the opportunity to become a direct disciple. My teacher never said that a named disciple will always be named disciple. Besides, accepting a disciple as a master has its own reasons for being a master. How can you allow you to doubt it?" He flicked his sleeves and said, "Just take care of yourself." As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared. Bronsky watched Zhao Yu disappear and clenched his fists bitterly. The next day, the registered disciples took the 2-month assessment, and all of them finally passed. These named disciples, regardless of their perseverance and qualifications, are better than ordinary people. With the help of elixirs, they have generally practiced their chosen exercises to the 2nd level in 2 months. Those with great potential, such as Blonsky, Barton and others, are showing off their skills. There is a ton of huge strength, a small potential, and 1,000 pounds. It can be said that they are completely different now than they were 2 months ago. If you really compare, you can crush yourself 2 months ago with just a few clicks of your fingers. Of course, firearms are excluded. In their current state, being hit by a thermal weapon would still have serious consequences, there was no doubt about it. Zhao Yu stood at the head with his hands behind his back, with a look of relief on his face. He glanced at the 26 registered disciples and said with a smile, "None of you have let me down. Everyone has passed the examination. According to the regulations at the beginning of entry, you can leave the cave now. But before I leave, I would like to give you a few words of advice." He showed a stern look on his face. "You must keep in mind the sect's teachings and rules. This is one. Second, I hope that when I see you next time, I can see that you have found the place of persistence in your heart. Your cultivation is for what? A grudge, to act chivalrously, to protect, to kill. This is about your future. Finally, I would like to give you a word of advice from my teacher. When practicing, you must maintain a normal mind." His eyes deliberately swept over Bronsky. "At any time, you must keep your mind from being polluted, and remember it. Remember to read more Taoist scriptures, practice hard. Okay, let's stop here." Zhao Yu waved his hand. "From today on, you can leave the sect. If you don't want to leave, I won't force you as a teacher. At the same time, you can come back at any time, as long as you don't commit any lawlessness. If you redeem your mistakes, the sect's door will always be open." The disciples all bowed to Zhao Yu, and except for a few 2 or 3, the others left the sect one after another. Most of these registered disciples came from Shield and the government. Their original purpose of training here was to serve the government and Shield, so they all left. The remaining 2 or 3 people were all people from the private sector. They did not serve anyone and decided to practice well in the sect. After sending away the registered disciples, the Tai cave became much quieter. Among the 8 direct disciples, except for Peter and Ruiwen who were tasked to guard the farm and the gate of the sect, the other 6 were all beside Zhao Yu. The gatekeeping task is the longest-term task of the sect. Since Zhao Yu officially opened the mountain to accept disciples, many people have come to visit or become disciples one after another. Ordinary visitors will be turned away, while apprentices must wait until the same time next year. The sect has sect rules. After the apprenticeship time, even Xavier School or other mutants or superheroes must wait until the next time. It is impossible to just come in and start the test process. The number of disciples in the Tai sect is too cheap. Therefore, the farm must be watched by someone at all times. There is this sect mission. As for the gate of the sect that needs to be guarded, it is also necessary. To get in and out of the gate, it takes 2.5 tons of force to push the gate open. Many registered disciples do not yet have this ability. When they enter or leave the sect, someone must open the door for them. Then there is this sect mission. For these 2 tasks, the tasks of guarding the farm and receiving visitors, the 8 direct disciples took turns. As for the gatekeeping task of the sect, only Peter and Logan were capable of the task at first. 10 days after accepting the disciples, Harry joined. Now, every one of them has this ability, even Tony. Now among the 8 direct disciples, Peter is far ahead. He has practiced Chunyang Body Refining Fist to the 7th level and is about to break through to the 8th level. It is easy to move his hands and feet and have tens of thousands of kilograms of strength. Among them, the one with the highest level of cultivation is Harry. He started only later than Tony and Peter. Now, Chunyang Body Refining Fist has reached the 5th level. There are more than 10,000 divine powers in one body. Rank 3rd is actually Cindy, the 7th junior sister. He has reached the 4th level of Pure Yang Boxing and is about to break through to the 5th level. It's really rare. You must know that among the senior brothers and sisters who started at the same time, such as Raven, Logan, Natasha and Matt, their starting conditions were higher than hers, but they were surpassed by her, which shows that their qualifications and understanding are extraordinary. The remaining ones are all at the 3rd level of boxing, with slightly different levels. The highest one is undoubtedly Luo Zhen, only below Cindy. The worst was Tony, who had just broken through the 3rd level. But even Tony's physical strength is 6,000 pounds. It can be said that the qualifications and potential of his direct disciples have all met Zhao Yu's requirements. Among these named disciples, there are actually a few who have qualifications and potential that are no worse than some of you. Zhao Yu said to the 6 disciples around him, for example, Bronsky, Barton and Frank. If their cultivation techniques were not inferior to yours, and if they had the same supply of resources, their current state would definitely be worse than yours. Especially Tony. Quote. Hearing this, Tony quickly raised his hands in surrender. Master, I still need to draw the talisman. I have less time to practice than them, of course. Of course what? Zhao Yu glanced at him. That's not a reason. Ask your junior brothers and sisters, who is the least diligent. Tony smiled and stopped talking. Forget it, everyone has their own fate. Zhao Yu shook his head. You are talented in talismans, so it is understandable that you practice slower. But as a teacher, I still say, practice hard. I know. Tony was a little impatient. Zhao Yu tried to slap him, but Tony quickly dodged and all the disciples laughed. Speaking of which, Tony had already taken over from Peter, and he was the one who received the most slaps from Zhao Yu. He had already developed a conditioned reflex, and when he saw Zhao Yu making any movement, he hurriedly dodged. The 3-month period originally set, now it seems, can be cancelled. Zhao Yu ignored Tony and said with gratified eyes, the progress of each of your cultivation has exceeded the requirement to open the door. Therefore, as a teacher, it has been decided that you, like the registered disciples, can enter and leave the cave at any time starting today. Several disciples had different expressions upon hearing this. People like Cindy, who regards practicing as a hobby, remain calm. She decided not to leave the sect for a short period of time unless necessary. Anyway, her parents know that she is practicing here, so there is no big concern outside, and Peter is also in the sect. Wolverine Logan looked excited. To be honest, he had wanted to go out for a long time. Ever since he regained his memory, he wanted to go out and find what he had lost. Now that I can go out, of course I can't wait. In fact, this is also the biggest reason why his cultivation progress as a mutant cannot match that of Cindy. Just as impatient as him was Tony. For Tony, a playboy, the bright and bustling world outside is what he yearns for. If he stayed in the sect for the rest of his life, it would be better to kill him. There is also Natasha. She also plans to leave Dongtian. After all, she is from S.H.I.E.L.D. Since Zhao Yu is no longer restricted, she has to go back to fulfill her duties. The other people's expressions only moved slightly, and they thought or didn't think about it, all in one thought. But, looking at their appearance, Zhao Yu secretly smiled in his heart and changed his voice. Unless necessary, direct disciples must stay in the sect for 5 days every 10 days to practice. Let them relax, but not indulge. When Tony heard this, his beaming face suddenly dropped. Isn't it? This is the sect's rule. Zhao Yu said in a non-negotiable tone, especially you, Tony. If I don't give you any restrictions, you won't be allowed to fly when you go out. But master, I plan to make a pair of armor, and I must use equipment. The sect does not have those equipment, Tony explained. Is that so? Zhao Yu nodded slightly. Then I would like to ask you, how long will it take to make armor? A month, no, half a year. Tony said half a sentence, then immediately changed his mind. Then 2 months. Zhao Yu said decisively. In 2 months, if I can't see your armor, hee. Facing Zhao Yu's gleaming gaze, Tony shuddered and straightened his body like a soldier, promised to complete the mission. Zhao Yu nodded and looked at Luo Zhen, who was hesitant to speak. Master knows your situation clearly, so there will be no restrictions. But remember, take enough energy pills with you when you leave. Don't let go of your practice. Thank you, Master. Logan breathed a sigh of relief and said gratefully. Then let's do it, Zhao Yu said. If you want to leave the cave, go and prepare. I am in the back hall. If you need anything, come to me in the back hall. After saying that, he turned around and disappeared. Haha, I can finally leave this hellish place. As soon as Zhao Yu left, Tony let go, and he opened his arms to embrace the air. Feasting and feasting, accompanied by beautiful women, this is the life of Tony Stark, the world's #1 genius. Several fellow disciples curled their lips when they saw this and walked away in 2s and 3s, leaving Tony in a mess in the wind. Oh, I said you don't want to express your opinion. He caught up and chattered. My opinion is, shut up. Natasha rolled her eyes at him. It's very embarrassing for me, senior brother, you know. If you are outside, you must not say that he is our senior brother. Tony looked helpless. It's just a joke, you don't have to be so serious, right? Several others shrugged. Okay, if I don't want to play with you, I'll go find Master. Tony said with a smile. By the way, whoever wants to leave, let's come together and treat me to the best bar in Manhattan tonight. Do you have wine? Logan's attention was immediately attracted. Of course, the best wine, Tony said proudly. Then count me in. Logan nodded. But I don't have money, I know you do. Brother, you're welcome, Tony said nervously. I won't go with you. Natasha shook her head. The director is waiting for me to go back. I think you should just resign. Are people worthy of being in a place like S.H.I.E.L.D.? Tony said disdainfully. If you ask me, there is nothing better than being an agent. I'm used to it. Natasha didn't care what Tony said. I have been trained to be an agent since I was a child, and I have been training to this day. I don't know what to do without being an agent. What about you? Tony asked Raven, Harry and Cindy again. Harry hesitated. I plan to go back and see my father first. His condition is not very good. I'll stay here, Cindy said. Me too. Tony could only spread his hands. Okay, it's all so boring. As he spoke, he put his arm around Logan's shoulders and said with a smile, if they don't go, let's have fun tonight. As he said this, he showed a look that every man understands. Logan also laughed. The women snorted and quickly distanced themselves. That's it, Tony said. Logan, I'm going to the back hall first. I have a question to ask Master. If you have anything to pack, pack it away. When I come out, we can go together. Logan understood. Tony turned and headed towards the back hall. Come in. Before Tony could knock on the door, Zhao Yu's voice came from inside the door. He opened the door and walked in. Is something wrong? Yes, too. Tony sat down cross-legged in front of Zhao Yu and showed a flattering smile. Master, is it time for me to untie that tight curse? You see, I am different now from before, right? Zhao Yu looked at him with his eyes. Although I have a sharp eye, I didn't see it. Tony's expression froze. But Master, there is something in my head that makes people worry about me all day long. It's not very comfortable. That's right. You have to have something to worry about so that you don't run away from the train. Zhao Yu said. As for the tightening curse, when you complete the foundation building, advance the energy refining, and refine the mana, when will my master release it for you? Quote. Seeing Zhao Yu's expression that he didn't want to discuss it, Tony had no choice but to hold back. Okay, you have the final say anyway. After grumbling, he said seriously, Master, what I just said about making a pair of armor was not a joke. I had this idea after I was kidnapped in that Afghanistan incident. If I hadn't practiced to you, it should have been made. But now I have a more wonderful idea. He said with excitement. As you said, what kind of chemical reaction will occur when the talisman and the machine are combined? I can't wait. Zhao Yu smiled and nodded, but with your current level, it is difficult to engrave talismans on steel. Yes, that's why I'm worried about it. He frowned and said, does it take mana to engrave a permanent talisman? Not necessarily, Zhao Yu said with a smile, if you are willing to work hard. Tony's expression changed, and then he quickly shook his head, forget it. If you have to carve talismans on a piece of armor with your heart and soul, I'm afraid you'll never see me again. It's good to know, Zhao Yu said seriously. You can only eat as much as you want. You don't have that realm, and if you insist on using the power of that realm, it will definitely backfire on you. You must have a permanent talisman with no sequelae. Mana, otherwise it will definitely fail. I guess mana is a kind of energy, right? Tony asked without giving up. Energy, it can be said that once you have magic power, you will understand. Zhao Yu said, I know what you are thinking. Use some kind of energy to replace it. Electric energy, solar energy or even nuclear energy. Wrong. Quote. He said, mana is not simply a kind of energy. It is made by combining human will with all kinds of spiritual energy from heaven and earth, and refining it with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Can you make electric energy, solar energy and nuclear energy have human will? If not, the talisman will definitely not it will be successful. When Tony heard this, most of the luck in his heart immediately disappeared. There can be no shortcuts in anything. Even if you make armor, don't you need to have the corresponding academic skills? Can just anyone make it out of thin air? You are a smart person, don't you understand? The armor can be made first, or even you can try to do some experiments combining it with talismans, and it's not too late to improve after you develop your magic power. Hearing this, Tony nodded slightly, I understand. Just understand, Zhao Yu said. But if you want to combine your armor with the talisman, you must pay attention to the material selection. As he spoke, Zhao Yu took out a booklet and handed it to Tony. Your way, talisman for the Lord, we need to combine the weapon refining method in the future. This booklet contains some basic talismans and weapon refining materials, mainly the characteristics of the materials. If you study them carefully, it should be helpful to you. Tony's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he quickly opened the booklet. He didn't look at it twice before his face dropped. Master, what is this black iron? Zhao Yu laughed. Don't look at the name, look at the characteristics of Xuanti. Xuanti is iron essence, an essence extracted from steel. 1 ton of steel can probably extract 1 or 2 Xuanti. Of course, you don't have this ability now. But there are some special environments in nature that produce natural black iron, so you might as well start from this aspect. 1 tael per ton. 50 grams, Tony shouted. Isn't this too exaggerated? It's not an exaggeration, it's not an exaggeration. Zhao Yu said leisurely. Xuanti is just the most basic type of material for refining gold. It also has iron mother, gold essence, taebaijin essence, etc. These acquired gold elements, all the low-grade materials can be extracted from steel, but the ratio is small. He smiled slightly. As for the iron mother, 1 or 200 tons of steel can be extracted. As for the gold essence, a mine should be able to extract it. Come out with a few taels, and Taebai Jinjing. He shook his head and said nothing. Tony opened his mouth. Okay, I know, Master, are you letting me take this path because I have money? Most people don't have this capital, right? Maybe. Zhao Yu smiled and said nothing. By the way, my teacher suddenly remembered. Zhao Yu secretly consulted the system, stopped Tony who was about to leave and said, there are 2 metals that have the properties of iron. Maybe you know. Tony paused and turned around quickly. What metal? Adamantium and vibranium. Zhao Yu said calmly. Your father Howard used these 2 metals to make a shield for Captain America. Both metals have certain characteristics that are close to the rules of gold, and may even be close to the quality of gold. Your father can use these 2 metals, and he must have a formula to dissolve them. If you use these 2 metals to make armor, the starting point will be much higher than ordinary alloy steel. Tony heard this and clapped his hands. Why didn't I think of that? After saying that, Fengfenghuahuo ran away. The original metals of vibranium and adamantium alloy come from space meteorites. It claims to be indestructible and indestructible, but in reality its power is still limited. Through the consultation system, Zhao Yu knew that both vibranium and adamantium alloy had certain characteristics of natural iron mother. They were not complete, but each had its own characteristics. One is to absorb shock, and the other is extremely hard. These 2 refining materials have certain characteristics that are close to the rules of the golden element among the acquired 5 elements, and are difficult to destroy with brute force. Pure power can destroy, but it must be strong enough and have sufficient transport skills. To put it simply, hitting a cow across a mountain is a technique for transporting power and energy. This is just an example. However, everything is interdependent. Iron mothers, even gold essences, and even higher-level Taebai gold essences can be smelted in more convenient ways without using pure strength. To extract refined iron from steel, ordinary fire is enough, as long as the temperature is high enough. To refine the iron mother, one must refine the fire in the stone, one of the Samadhi true fires. To refine the golden essence, the Samadhi true fire must have 2 complete fires in order to refine the fire in the wood. To refine the Taebaijin essence, one needs to complete the Samadhi and then refine the fire in the sky. The so-called true fire of Samadhi is made by smelting the essence of the 5 elements and the 3 treasures of essence, energy and spirit. The fire in the stone is the mystery of the 2 elements of metal and earth, which is formed by combining the essence of the body. The fire in the wood is the mystery of the 2 elements of water and wood, which is formed by the origin of law. The fire in the air is even more mysterious, combined with the essence of fire. Spiritual will is smelted with hard work. The unity of this Samadhi has reached its ultimate perfection, with the power to burn the sky and cook the sea, even burning through space. It is extremely difficult to achieve the immortal realm without returning to the void. If the true fire of Samadhi is used as a guide, there are few things in this world that cannot be refined. The so-called adamantium alloy and the so-called vibranium can be smelted with just a touch. However, Zhao Yu has not yet refined a true fire, so if Tony wants to use these two metals to make armor, he still needs to find a way on his own. But then again, this world is also dominated by black technology. For example, these two metals already have almost iron-like regular properties, but they can also be used by ordinary people. Although it is difficult to popularize them, it is also eye-opening. Zhao Yu does not covet these two metals very much. He doesn't need one now, and even if there are more, it will be in vain if he can't refine them in his hands. He already has the two magic weapons and has no additional needs for the time being. Thirdly, if necessary, it is much better to exchange the Iron Mother directly from the system than these two defective products. Although a pound of Iron Mother is only about the size of a match head, it only costs 200 luck points, so it is not very expensive. In fact, everything in this world is not so appetizing to Zhao Yu, who has a system. The system can redeem whatever you want, as long as you have luck value. So for him, luck is the only thing. Of course, if there is something very good but the exchange is too expensive, you can make some calculations. Such as those gems. It should be almost time, right? He secretly thought about it. Agent Romanov, did you come out of that place too? Fury said. Didn't our master say that as his direct disciples, you will need 3 months? I can understand that you are jealous, right, boss? Natasha crossed her arms on her chest. Because we met his requirements in advance, so. She shrugged. Request, Fury said. Our registered disciples are more than 1,000 pounds strong. What about your direct disciples? As for jealousy, well, there is a little bit. The requirement for us is to push open the gate of the sect. Natasha said. It requires a thrust of 2.5 tons. Coulson, Hill, and Barton were all staring at her. Coulson smiled and said. Then you are much better than before. We're all the same, aren't we? That's true. Coulson raised his arm. I found that if I have to deal with the old me now, one hand is enough. The old me was not afraid even if I had a gun, as long as I was alert enough. Perhaps we can form a special response team. Hill suggested. Boss, our Shield and Natasha have a total of 13 people joining the sect. Each of them is much more powerful than before. You should consider it. Next to him, Barton was wiping his bow and arrows that had not been used for 2 months. Hearing this, he smiled and said, this is a good suggestion. But I think we should take a longer view. It's only been 2 months. Several people nodded in agreement. Fury said nothing. He looked out the window for a long time and said, there are 5 people here, including me, we are in one team. The others are in one team. Several other people shrugged and expressed no objection. But no one understood the deep meaning of Fury's words. At this moment, a call came in. Fury answered the call, hummed a few words, and suddenly his eyes widened. Alive? Are you sure? After a moment, he put down the phone, glanced around, and settled on Coulson. Maybe there is a job here that is more suitable for you. Happy to oblige. Coulson smiled slightly. Go to the North Atlantic Glacier, where our people discovered a secret that will surprise you. Coulson, I hope you don't faint when you see this secret. Remember to bring him back. Fury sold it. Guanzi. Coulson smiled. Can you give me a reminder? Go now. No hint, it's now. After Coulson left, Natasha asked, what would surprise Coulson? Glacier. She was a little curious. Same goes for Patton and Hill. Coulson's idol. Our captain has swam ashore from the River of Time. Fury laughed hard. Captain America. It's really unbelievable, Mr. President said in amazement after reading the thin page of information in his hand. He looked at Congressman John and several other senior officials from the Congress and the military, as well as Bronsky, who was standing upright next to him. It's only been 2 months, is it just the effect of that kind of exercise and pills? Yes, Mr. President. Bronsky stood there motionless like a machine. Just 2 months, just exercises and pills. The president nodded slightly, considered it for a moment, looked at the others, and said, so, what do you think about this? A gray-haired military general said, if this is the case, I think our super soldier plan can be thrown into the trash. It takes a short time to take effect, has no side effects, and can be mass-produced. Regardless of strength, endurance, agility, reaction, and various comprehensive qualities, they are all beyond the scope of ordinary people. Mr. President, if we have an army like this, we don't need too many. With 10,000 people and the most sophisticated individual thermal weapons in the United States, without using strategic weapons, I think no one in the world can stop us. No, the president waved his hand and suddenly frowned. Even with such an army, there are still people who can threaten the stability of society. The general said, but those are a very small number. With such an army, no matter mutants or those lucky ones who accidentally gain power, they will no longer be a problem. Moreover, he smiled, SHIELD. There is no need to continue to exist, and it can save us a lot of military expenses. Representative John and Bronsky understood clearly and couldn't help but look at each other. John coughed and said, the idea of Mr. President and His Excellency the General is good, but everyone focused their attention on him. I don't think it can be done in a short period of time. I need an explanation, the president said. When Mr. President considers this issue, he needs to take Tai sect into consideration. John said seriously, the rules of Tai sect are that no disciple is allowed to teach the sect skills without the consent of the sect, otherwise. Quote, otherwise what? The general said indifferently. Are we afraid of the so-called Tai sect? What are their sect rules? The president frowned. John said, we have to be afraid. General, have you forgotten how powerful Mr. Zhao of the Tai sect is? I think, let alone 10,000 troops equivalent to Bronsky, even 100,000, there is nothing he can do. Even, he gestured with a wrinkled face, even nuclear bombs are useless. In my report to Mr. President and Congress, I have clearly pointed out that Tai sect is not in our dimension. In other words, Tai sect itself is invincible. That Mr. Zhao can even take people through space, I've experienced this firsthand. What if he comes to the White House? The White House will become a black hole. John solemnly said, we will all cease to exist. Silence fell. After a long time, John sighed slightly. Since we have already decided to cooperate with him, why should we be half-hearted without any means to check and balance him? He has not refused to cooperate with us. We have the opportunity to add some manpower every year. It won't take long. After 3 to 5 years, we will have a strong enough force. Should we gain strength safely, or must we pay an irreparable price to gain it? I think smart people know what to do. Choose. Furthermore, I have to say that you are all fanciful. John took a breath. You don't understand cultivation, and you don't understand Mr. Zhao's methods. What I just said is just one of the reasons. The rest, I think Lieutenant Colonel Blonsky can give you an explanation. Blonsky listened to the arguments of these politicians, looked at their faces, and sneered in his heart. He found that he seemed to be able to tolerate such hypocritical, cunning, and dirty faces before, but now he wanted to punch them. They are all idiots. Just like John said, they don't know anything, they don't understand anything, they dare to think randomly, they don't respect the power, they simply don't know what to do. In Bronsky's eyes, Zhao Yu's power is absolute. In the face of absolutely powerful power, these idiots will pull out their brains and come up with many conspiracies and tricks, but it will be useless. However, Master Zhao Yu can be aloof and free from the control of these politicians, but he cannot. He is still struggling to survive under these politicians. Hearing John's words, he reluctantly saluted and said, cultivation first requires qualifications. If the qualifications are not enough, practicing hard for a lifetime will be useless. Secondly, it requires resources, that is, pills. If the resources are not enough, the cultivation speed will be very slow. Those with the same qualifications under such circumstances, with the aid of elixirs, the cultivation speed is more than 5 times that without the aid of elixirs. Mr. President, General, even if we can ignore the sect's rules and copy the exercises, I think the only result is it's not worth the loss. The exercises taught by the sect to the named disciples were all copied from the booklet by Zhao Yu. They were not initiations and inheritance of divine will, so they were not qualified. It can be copied. Bronsky understood very well what these people were thinking. They wanted nothing more than to get the exercises from the registered disciples of the sects who were affiliated with the government departments, and then find a large number of people to practice them. But if the government wants to use Tai sect's exercises at will, it offends Tai sect and Zhao Yu, and the consequences are predictable. First of all, Tai sect will never recruit disciples from the government again. Secondly, some resource exchanges that have been reached with Tai sect have definitely failed. Finally, we have to face the threat of a humanoid strategic weapon at any time. What they got were just some low-level skills, which were difficult to practice without sufficient resources. The most important thing is that for Blonsky himself, he is afraid and unwilling from the bottom of his heart. For him, Tai sect is at the top of his mind. Even if he is only a registered disciple. But the future is closely connected with Taiyaman. He couldn't bear the price of betraying the Tai sect and teaching the techniques privately against the sect's rules, nor was he willing to bear it. He desperately longs for power, and Tai sect is the place that can give him power. He violated the sect rules and cleaned up the sect, and he didn't think he could escape from Zhao Yu. Not even the people in power who have always been in front of us. John then added, the last time Tai sect recruited disciples, we and Shield had a total of more than 100 people participating. These more than 100 people were selected to be the best among the best, who can become direct disciples. There are only 4 people, and there are more than 20 registered disciples. As for our government, there is not a single direct disciple. You know, they themselves are elite soldiers and agents who are only 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000. However, there are still many people who have not passed the test. That is, he said that even if we have elites, more than 80% of them do not meet the qualification requirements. So, Mr. President, Your Excellency the General, everyone, think about it, take the risk of offending Tai men, and risk being thrown away at any time. Is it worth risking your life to do something that is not cost-effective at all? After hearing this, the president first sighed, and then said angrily, as the President of the United States, I have never been so cowardly as I am now. Then he added, but in this case, we don't have to worry about the rapid growth of Tai sect. In the president's view, since the Tai sect has such high qualification requirements for its disciples, even carefully selected soldiers, the number of people who can get started cannot meet his psychological requirements. It can be seen that if the Tai sect wants to grow rapidly, it will not be possible. Too likely. The plan just now. The military general looked hesitant. Quote, We can first form a research team to study the exercises. The president still did not give up and considered, why can't we find other ways out by studying the exercises? Everyone thought carefully and couldn't help but nod. Playing on the edge. The super soldier plan. Let's put it aside for now. The president waved his hand. From World War II to now, nearly a century, so many resources and money have been invested, and what are the results? I haven't seen it, and none of the previous presidents have seen it. Now it has something to do with Tai sect. With the connection established, we can get some people in every year. Although it is not many, the rewards are visible. I don't need to explain the difference, right? By transferring the resources of the Super Soldier project to researching the exercises, hopefully we'll get good results. The general nodded helplessly. Follow your orders. Someone looked at Bronsky and said, Soldier, you are the most promising among your group. You should stay out of the matter of copying the exercises. John opened his mouth, and Bronsky breathed a sigh of relief. Zhao Yu didn't know the commotion outside, but it can be guessed. The so-called sin of possessing a treasure is that having something coveted will always lead to trouble. Thanks to the summoning saint card, Zhao Yushan established an unrivaled image in front of everyone so that direct trouble could be avoided. But the coveters will definitely make small moves in private, which is inevitable. But Zhao Yu didn't care. Even if there is a mistake, what is leaked is just some low-level skills, which is harmless. On the contrary, he vaguely agreed with Zhao Yu's wishes. Now, the sect is on the right track. From now on, we only need to follow the steps, accepting disciples when they should, and passing on the skills and techniques when they should. For Zhao Yu, the most important thing is his own cultivation. Whether it's using the holy calling card or trying to deceive people with tongue-splitting lotus flowers, they are all fake. Only your own cultivation is real. Although it seems that he has shocked everyone at the moment, what if there is a big trouble that requires him to take action himself? So you can't reveal your secrets. There is only one last chance to summon the holy card. The sect and disciples did cause some delays for Zhao Yu, but his progress in cultivation did not fall far behind. His physique is really special, and the two supreme skills promote each other. Now his physical body has reached the 7th level of the mortal body. The brute force alone in his movements is thousands of tons. The mortal body has 9 levels in total. After the monks completed the foundation building, they were only at the first level of the mortal body. With only the first level of the mortal body, if you have deep potential and extraordinary aptitudes, you can develop tens of tons of physical brute force. For example, the second disciple Tianyang Peter has extraordinary aptitudes and potential. He has not yet completed the foundation building and has not yet completed the first level of the mortal body. It already has a huge strength of 20,000 to 30,000 kilograms. Zhao Yu estimated that when this boy perfects Chunyang boxing and achieves bodybuilding and foundation building, he will have a brute force of 40,000 kilograms, which is 20 tons. Compared with qualifications, Zhao Yu is special. When he reaches the first level of his mortal body, he has physical brute strength of 50 tons, which is upwards of 100,000 kilograms. This number doubles with each level of advancement, so that now at the 7th level of body refining, there are 3,200 tons of pure brute force. Compared with the true form of chaos, the level of mana of the 3 yuan qi refining method has also caught up. It has reached the 7th level of qi refining, and has derived many wonderful spells. The magical power of the 5 elements primordial magnetic divine light can still be used reluctantly to this day. The various 5 elements spells derived from the 5 elements primordial magnetic divine light are not only easy to master, but also can be used in every room. Coupled with the fact that every time the physical realm is broken through, the physical body awakens a magical instinct, giving Zhao Yu himself a lot of capital. Speaking of magical powers of the physical body, when Zhao Yu broke through the first level of the mortal body, a wisp of earth energy emerged from the acupuncture points of his spleen, which could communicate the mysteries of the earth and shrink the earth to an inch. When breaking through the second level of the mortal body, a ray of golden energy emerges from the various points in the lungs, showing its sharp edge and being indestructible. When the mortal body is at the third level, a stream of water qi is derived from various acupuncture points in the kidneys, giving Zhao Yu endless power. The power can be superimposed one after another, and one wave is higher than the other. When breaking through the fourth level of the mortal body, various acupuncture points in the liver produce a wisp of wood, which nourishes the physical body and has a strong recovery ability. When breaking through the fifth level of the mortal body, a ray of fire is generated from various acupuncture points in the heart, making the energy extremely strong. When Qi moves, he has extremely powerful explosive ability. In this way, all the internal organs and the 5 elements have their origins, and they actually form a mysterious and abnormal array of 5 elements in the body that are mutually reinforcing and interfering with each other. Not only did it give him a new understanding of the 5 elements magnetic divine light and various 5 elements spells, but it also allowed him to take the lead in acquiring the samadhi true fire. At the 6th level of the mortal body, all the internal organs are already complete with mysteries, but unexpectedly a wisp of yin qi arises in the right eye, awakening the mystery of the secluded world, and being able to look directly into the soul and see nothingness. When he was in the 7th level of his mortal body, a ray of yang qi emerged from his left eye, giving birth to a vibrant bright light, which could vaguely reveal the composition of the laws of the world and the laws of energy circulation. This breakthrough in the physical realm, the awakening of instinctive supernatural powers, has its own rules. Earth qi, metal qi, water qi, wood qi and fire qi are in line with the principle of mutual development of the 5 elements. The eyes have one yin and one yang, which are in harmony with the yin and yang. Being able to see through all kinds of nothingness and look directly at the operation of laws as the prototype of the heavenly eye. If Zhao Yu hadn't been of a lowly level, he might have been able to reach poverty and fall into poverty. Although the 2 places were vast, they were both under his nose. As for the 8th and 9th levels of the mortal body in the future, Zhao Yu had some vague guesses about what kind of supernatural powers this body would have, but he was not sure. This chaos real body is truly a supreme method, and other methods of body refining will never be as magical as this. Zhao Yu's heart was very open. Now that the sect is on the right track, Zhao Yu can meditate with peace of mind. In the past few months, I have been worrying a lot about my disciples, which has delayed my own practice. It is right to take advantage of this opportunity to cultivate the mortal body to perfection and get a glimpse of the spirit. After saying hello to the couple, Magneto King, and the few direct disciples who stayed in the sect, Zhao Yu closed the back hall door and ignored Qin Shu. "Welcome back, Captain. Fury smiled broadly and stretched out his hand as soon as the person walked in. Just call me Steve. Captain America Steve Rogers, who is so handsome that makes men jealous and women blush, smiled and shook hands with Fury. This is Maria Hill, this is Natasha Romanoff, and this is Clint Barton. Fury quickly introduced and said with a smile, I don't need to explain this, Phil Co. Urson. Yes, the first thing I saw when I opened my eyes was Mr. Coulson. Steve shook hands with several people. It's incredible, isn't it? Steve looked at Natasha and the others and smiled helplessly. I feel like I just slept for a while, and when I opened my eyes it was 70 years later, at a loss what to do. It will be fine soon. Coulson quickly comforted him. Maybe. Steve smiled. But I have to thank you, it's too cold under the glacier. Everyone laughed. While chatting, Steve said, has the formula of the super soldier serum been restored? I mean, after I was frozen, Dr. Erskine's results were restored, you all gave me a powerful feeling. His eyes fell on Natasha, especially Ms. Romanoff. Just call me Natasha. Natasha smiled and shook her head. As far as we know, the only truly successful example of the super soldier serum is you, Captain Rogers. Fury nodded. Since Dr. Erskine was killed by Hydra agents, the country has made many efforts, but in the past 70 years, all the research has produced are defective products. He himself and even Natasha had been injected with this type of derivative medicine. However, it is too different from Captain America's original potion to be compared. Then, Steve looked confused. Practice. Barton interrupted and said with a smile, we all joined the sect and practiced the skills, so we became stronger. 2 months ago, except for combat skills, we were not much better than ordinary people. Practice. Join the sect. Steve was even more confused. So, Fury and others told him everything about the Tai sect. When the sect recruits disciples next year, the captain can give it a try. Coulson said, with the captain's perseverance, there is definitely a chance to become a direct disciple like Natasha. Fury also meant the same thing, otherwise he wouldn't have told Rogers about Tai's affairs in such detail. In his opinion, Captain America is worthy of trust. He nodded and said, I think through practice, the captain will become stronger. However, Captain America himself has little interest in this. It is no longer a war period and there are no Nazis. If possible, I plan to have a detailed understanding of this era and then find a job. Everyone laughed when they heard this. Fury said, this world is very prosperous on the surface, and this is what you can see, Captain. However, everything that is shiny has a dark backside. Otherwise, what is the point of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Mutants, super criminals, there are many extraordinary beings hidden among the crowd. For this type of people, ordinary police and even the military are helpless, only us. So Captain, you can't retire just yet. General, Lieutenant Colonel Blonsky is here. General Ross was chewing a cigar and processing documents. When he heard this, he raised his head and said, invite him in. Bronsky entered the door and saluted. Your Excellency, General, Soldier Bronsky greets you. General Ross returned the military salute. Please sit down. He put out his cigar and said, I heard about you. Especially you, Lieutenant Colonel Blonsky. They said that you are the most powerful soldier in the army. Therefore, I found you. I have a very important tasks need to be completed by you. Please give the order, General. Blonsky is confident. The target of this mission is him. The person we want to arrest was once a scientist in our military. But he betrayed the United States and has been absconding. General Ross opened the drawer, took out a document bag, and threw it in front of Bronsky. Our agents recently discovered his traces. He is very cunning. We have been unable to do anything with him after several pursuits. Lieutenant Colonel Blonsky, I hope you will not let me down this time. Blonsky opened the document bag and looked through it. Finally, his eyes fell on a young and thin man in the photo. He frowned. Can this person escape the pursuit of the military? Don't underestimate him, soldier. General Ross pointed to his brain. This is a high-tech criminal with a smart brain and strict logical thinking. Bronsky nodded slightly to show his understanding, then stood up and saluted. Then, please give him to me, Your Excellency General. Bronsky has performed countless missions since he became a soldier. As a soldier king-level existence, he has never failed. Although the target of this mission is known as a high-tech criminal, it's not like he has never dealt with such targets before. He is confident that his military skills can deal with so-called high-tech criminals, especially now. He believes that even if he is an extraordinary person, many of them are no match for him now. General Ross decided to personally participate in commanding the arrest operation. Although Bronsky was slightly confused about this, it seemed a bit unreliable for a U.S. military general to go abroad to catch criminals. However, Bronsky believes that this is General Ross's emphasis on mission objectives. This is also his first military mission out of the sect, and he intends to complete it perfectly. One day later, a certain city in Brazil. This is a city built on a mountain. In comparison, except that the terrain looks a bit strange and the heights are staggered, it is incomparable with any other city in the United States that can be called a city. The extremely dense and old buildings, like spider webs, streets without any rules and patterns, and all kinds of people have a different style. In the command vehicle, General Ross pointed at the monitoring screen and said, "He is here, in this building. He should be resting at this time. Bronsky, I want you to catch him immediately. Remember, use a tranquilizer gun. I want you to live, don't die." Clear. Bruce Banner's life is a tragedy on the coffee table. "I lost my parents when I was a child, and now I have a girlfriend as an adult, but she is the daughter of someone who wants to arrest me." The tangles involved are really hard to describe. After finally escaping the pursuit of the U.S. military, I came to this corner of Brazil and finally lived a relatively stable life for a while. He now works as a mechanic and electrician in a beverage factory. As a PhD in physics, these tasks are just child's play for him. Last night, I overhauled the entire circuit in the workshop. It was almost dawn when I got home, and I was taking a rest. Suddenly, Banner, who was lying on the bed, opened his eyes. There was a sudden warning sign in his heart, and his heartbeat was pounding. Since the guy in his body awakened, he has had similar abilities, and will often produce similar warning signs when encountering possible crises. He stood up, took a few steps to the window, opened a corner of the curtain, looked down, and saw a rarely seen car in the distance. He focused his eyes, and then glanced around, and saw a team of people wearing uniforms. Armed soldiers have arrived downstairs. Shit. Banner breathed heavily and gritted his teeth. "I have to leave right away." He packed up a backpack in a few moments, thought for a while, made some cover on the bed, and quickly escaped from the window while hanging by a sheet. Within a minute, the door to the room was slammed open, and Bronsky burst in with a gun. He reached the bed in one swift step. His expression changed, and he suddenly opened the quilt. He escaped. Based on experience, he was the first to lock the window. He took 2 steps forward and saw the sheets hanging on the window. Then he looked out the window and saw a guy wearing a peaked cap and a backpack, walking quickly. "Got you." He made a few gestures and without waiting for the team members to respond, he jumped from the window and landed 6 to 7 meters away. He bent his legs slightly to relieve his strength, and with the help of this strength, he pounced like a leopard, flying from a distance. He caught up with the speed of a track and field athlete. The other team members quickly went downstairs and divided into 2 teams, one on the left and one on the right, to outflank and pursue them. If it were 2 months ago, it would have been quite difficult for Bronsky to catch up with Banner in a city with extremely complex terrain. But now, Banner acted as if nothing had happened, lowered his head, let his peaked cap cover his face, and walked quickly. As he walked, he looked around, and soon became aware of Bronsky's pursuit from behind. When he looked back, his face turned pale with fright. The pursuing soldier was so fast that no obstacles or corners on the street could slow him down. He was already within 50 meters. Banner no longer cared about pretending and ran away like crazy. "Stop!" Behind him, Bronsky yelled. Banner was also yelling. "Get out of the way, get out of the way." The dense crowds on the streets have become the biggest obstacle. For a moment, the two were chasing each other and the other was running away. The street turned into a mess, and everyone was in a state of chaos. Bronsky moved his feet as if he was stepping on a ball of cotton. He jumped 7 or 8 meters with 1 step and 1 leap. He was faster than a leopard. In just a few breaths, he reached a dozen meters behind Banner. Seeing Banner running around a corner in front of him, he raised his hand and threw the gun in his hand. The huge impact made Banner fly up. He didn't have time to feel the pain on his body. He wanted to get up. He knew very well what would happen if he was caught by the military. His heartbeat was getting faster and faster. Banner's face turned red, and he tried his best to suppress the anger that was pouring out from deep in his heart. He didn't want to let that thing out, even in this situation. But when he turned over with difficulty, Bronsky was already in front of him. No. Don't come. The veins on his face were already exposed, and his eyes were about to pop out. I don't want to hurt you. Bronsky slowed down and raised the corners of his mouth. Hurt me? He sneered. You, really, don't come here. Banner found that he could no longer suppress Hulk. Go away. Far away. Go away. Bronsky smiled, feeling that this mission was too simple. He took out a special handcuff from his waist and reached Banner's side in a few steps. Suddenly, a deep animal roar that was not like a human voice came from the mouth of the thin man in front of him. As Bronsky was stunned, the man's skin began to undergo obvious changes. With a few tearing sounds, his clothes were torn, and his thighs were torn apart. Arms quickly swelled. Blonsky's expression changed, and he rushed forward. A huge green arm swept over, and Bronsky raised his hand and punched it. Boom! There was a muffled sound, and Bronsky felt an irresistible force coming back from the tip of his fist. He paused, and his whole body was blown away. He was very calm, suppressing the numbness in half of his body, and did some somersaults in the air to release his strength. Seeing that he was about to hit the wall of the house, he kicked his legs several times, creating spider webs on the wall, jumped up again, and landed on the ground. Between the rising of the rabbit and the falling of the falcon, it was already a close fight. At this time, there were screams all around. Countless people on the street saw a huge green monster standing there, and were immediately frightened out of their wits. They screamed and ran away in all directions. I see. Blonsky took a deep breath. Only then did he know why General Ross asked him to perform this task, and why General Ross said that this person was not simple. It turns out to be a monster. The Hulk blocked Bronsky with his cross arm, turned over and got up, with a look of extreme anger on his big green face. This extremely angry look was actually mixed with a trace of pain. His huge left arm twisted a few times unconsciously. Different from direct brute force collision, boxing has been practiced to the level of entering the palace, and you have learned various techniques for exerting force. The force starts from the ground, passes through the legs, joins the spine, and forms in the palm of the fist. Twist the waist and strike with one blow, which can explode. The effect far exceeds its own brute force. For example, Bronsky himself has a huge strength of over 2,000 kilograms. Although the punch he just punched was sudden and did not explode with the strongest force, it still had 2 to 3 times the effect. And like Tai sect's Kung Fu, even the boxing and combat skills practiced by registered disciples can not only strengthen one's strength, but also have special effects. Bronsky has mastered the breaking jade fist to the point where he has the power to tear and shatter when he punches out. Even though the Hulk's body was strong, he was in great pain for a moment, and the muscles under the skin were torn to pieces and shattered to pieces. However, the Hulk has a strong recovery ability, and at this moment, he has almost recovered. But this pain made him angrier and his strength skyrocketed. Banner roared angrily, and swooped down, like a giant flea. His whole body was covered in darkness and he swooped forward. Bronsky did not dare to underestimate the monster in front of him, but the pain on the monster's face and unconscious movements let him know that his boxing skills were hurting him. Suddenly, his confidence greatly increased. So what if you are strong? If you don't know how to use it, you are just a barbarian. Of course, the guy in front of me is a monster in his own right. Faced with the overwhelming pressure of Banner's mountain, Bronsky shrank. When he had no time to react, he stepped aside. With one step, he walked around to Banner's side and punched Banner diagonally in the ribs. At some point, General Ross's command vehicle had arrived nearby. Dozens of elite special forces had set up a dragnet around the area, with densely packed guns aimed at the field. General Ross looked at the two fighting on the field with a look of surprise on his face. Blonsky can really deal with this monster. If you look at it head on, it may not work. A soldier on the side said, but Lieutenant Colonel Blonsky is very sensitive, and this monster is much clumsier. General Ross nodded, but he doesn't have much confidence in Blonsky. He deeply knows how powerful the Hulk is. Even tanks and artillery can do nothing. Although it seems to be evenly matched at the moment, in fact, once Bronsky takes a hit, he will definitely not be able to bear it. Blonsky himself is very aware of his situation. His expression has become very serious. This monster's power and physical strength are still growing rapidly. Shit, what the hell kind of monster is this? He cursed secretly. With that kind of power, the ground trampled on by his feet seemed to have experienced an earthquake. With a sweep of his hand, the surrounding building walls were like tofu, easily turned into ruins. From the beginning, I repeatedly punched this monster, but now, most of the time I have just avoided it. Even though this monster had no rules, no movement skills, and no ability to use his own power, he concluded that he would definitely not be able to bear it as long as he was hit by it. As the saying goes, you will be injured if you rub it, and you will die if you touch it. In just a moment, half of the street was turned into ruins in the battle between the two. General Ross's command vehicle moved several times, and the encirclement of special forces had to move accordingly. Moreover, the destructive power of the battle between the two was so great that houses collapsed, the ground cracked, and sand and gravel flew everywhere. In order to avoid being affected, the encirclement had to be expanded. In fact, this is almost all the result of Banner. In the dust, Banner roared again and again, while Bronsky was already attacking less and dodging more. This monster is too powerful, and it is getting stronger rapidly for no reason, non-stop. His strength continued to grow, his body became stronger and stronger, and the damage done to this monster by the broken jade fist became increasingly insignificant. Its speed and agility are also increased at the same time. A punch and a kick brought up strong winds, which made Bronsky's face hurt. Bronsky's eyes were red, and he turned sideways to avoid the monster's slap, but he was almost knocked out of position by the strong wind brought by the slap. He used his claws like a hook and went straight towards the monster's eyes, but the monster side-faced him and dodged it, only scratched the big face, and then two big hands on the left and right grabbed it. He shrunk and rushed from the Hulk's armpit to his back. His fist was like a big gun, and his hand pierced the spine. The Hulk roared in pain, turned around and fished again. Blonsky dodged again. As the saying goes, if you defend for a long time, you will lose. After all, Blonsky was unable to completely dodge Banner's fist. He was rubbed, and his whole body was numb. His strength was almost scattered, and he flew out directly, landing straight on the ground. General Ross was half kneeling in front of his command vehicle, barely able to maintain his balance. Fire! General Ross yelled. Immediately, gunshots like exploding beans were accompanied by jets of flames, interweaving into a violent metal storm, shrouding Banner in it. However, the huge green monster just stretched out his hand to cover his eyes, and allowed countless bullets to hit his body. His skin only dented slightly before being ejected, and landed on the ground with a clang, and a layer of bullets was instantly covered. Except for General Ross and Bronsky, who had fought against Banner, everyone else was stunned and some even screamed in terror. The Hulk was now standing in the field, motionless. However, General Ross knew that those bloodthirsty and angry eyes were staring at him. He slowly stretched out his hand, and all the gunfire stopped abruptly at this moment. Banner! General Ross roared. I know you can hear it. You belong to us, to the military. You can't escape. What responded to him was a huge roar. The giant seemed to have regained some composure. He looked deeply at General Ross and stayed on Bronsky for a moment. Then he kicked his feet and jumped up suddenly. After a few ups and downs, he fled the city and disappeared into the distance. In the mountains and forests. Bronsky's eyes were filled with flames, and he reluctantly looked back until the huge green monster disappeared from his sight. He slowly stood up and stood in front of General Ross, expressionless. General, you didn't tell me that the target was such a monster. General Ross closed his eyes and sighed, and after a moment he said, Soldier, you just need to obey the order. Then he said, search his residence, maybe he will leave some clues. It rained heavily, and at some point, Banner woke up. He had no shirt and only half a pair of pants underneath, under a rock wall in the forest. The humid air made him shiver all over, and he couldn't help but fold his arms and huddle up. His current mood, like the weather, was very bad. I was found by the military, lost my job, and lost my peace. What should I do in the future? Do you want to keep fleeing to a place that you don't even know? They want to arrest me because of you. Without you, I can live a stable life, and Betty. Banner had various thoughts in his mind. He thought of Mr. Lan. Speaking of which, he still had memories of the previous battle with Bronsky in his mind. From fleeing the United States to now, he has been thinking of ways to contain the monster inside him, and even decided to destroy it. Although I haven't found a way to eliminate the monster in my body, I can barely suppress it. Amidst the endless anger after transformation, he can maintain a trace of sanity. Otherwise, he would not have fled directly before, but would have killed General Ross and the others. I already said I would shut down the weapons department 2 months ago. Who can give me an explanation now? Why are we still developing and manufacturing weapons? On the Stark Group's board of directors, Tony stood at the head of the table, holding his hands on the tabletop of the long table and looking around with displeasure. On the right side, Obadiah Stane spoke slowly, "Tony, it's me." Tony cast his eyes on the old man, with a look of helplessness on his face. Obadiah Stane is the absolute veteran of the Stark Group, from the Howard era until now. It can be said that he is another core figure besides Howard and Tony and his son. The Starks were responsible for using their smart brains to research new technologies, while Obadiah used his abilities to run the group. This is how Stark is now in full swing. All this time, although Tony didn't say it verbally, he actually respected this old man very much. Because he knows that the Stark Group cannot live without Obadiah. "Tony," Obadiah said earnestly, "we know what you are thinking. Yes, when you went to Afghanistan, it was the weapons we produced that hurt you. But you are an adult, and you should know that weapons are there as no good or bad. It has no mind of its own, no good or evil. Without us making weapons, there will be others making them, and this cannot be eradicated. More importantly, weapons are the group's biggest source of profit. Tony, once the weapons department is shut down, what will become of the Stark Group? Can you imagine? All the directors will not want to see it, you have to understand." After listening to Obadiah's words and looking at the expressions of the directors, Tony knew that he was right. He stretched out his hands. "Guys, weapons can bring us huge profits, but weapons are not the only ones. I already have better ideas. Yes, they will make us more money. Everyone has to believe me, Tony, the brain of the world's greatest genius. I have decided that the weapons department must be shut down, no matter what." After saying these firm words, Tony walked out of the conference room with his head held high. Obadiah apologized very apologetically to all the directors and quickly chased him out. "Tony." Obadiah stopped Tony. Tony turned back. "Uncle Obadiah, no matter what, I will not change my mind." "Why are you always so willful?" Obadiah sighed. "Do you know what the directors will think of you? The weapons department is almost the entire Stark Group. If it is cut off with one cut, even if there is a new project to replace it, but who can be sure that it will make money? You know, once the group announces the shutdown of weapons research and development and manufacturing, the group's stock price will plummet, even to 1/10 or even 1/10 of the level. If it cannot be reversed, history will Tucker is finished." Facing Obadiah's sincere words, Tony had a firm look on his face. "Uncle Obadiah, you have to believe me. When have I ever let you down? My next project is energy. Do you know about energy? The finished product has been developed, and the technology needs to be perfected before it can be used on a large scale. The weapons are only used by a few people, but the energy belongs to the entire world." Having said this, he paused and said firmly, "My arc energy reactor was already manufactured when I was in Afghanistan. Uncle Obadiah, it is a powerful energy source that can propel steel armor." He said seriously, "There will definitely be no losses, and Stark Group will move towards a more glorious future." After saying that, Tony left directly. Obadiah looked at his back with a ferocious look on his face. "I won't let you destroy the group, absolutely. You shouldn't be so. I mean, you're too direct." Pepper looked at Tony with some worry. "Maybe we can set up a new energy department first, and then shut down the weapons department when it starts to make a profit." In the car, Tony was driving and Pepper was sitting in the passenger seat. "No, I never delay what I decide." Tony smiled. "You know, in that prison in Afghanistan, the first decision I made when I woke up was to shut down the weapons department. It's ridiculous when you think about it. I was actually beaten to death by a weapon I made, haha." Pepper was silent, and then said after a moment, but. No but, Tony said, I'm giving them a chance to make money, not begging them. Okay, Pepper sighed. As Mr. Obadiah said, Mr. Stark, you are too willful. I have the capital, don't I? He laughed. I have almost completed the research on the arc energy reactor. All that is left is improvement. He said proudly. This is a very clean and durable energy source that can even replace the existing energy system. Potts, can you imagine? What kind of scene is that? Anyone, is it exciting to use my Tony's energy? Pepper shrugged, maybe. By the way, he suddenly said, how are the materials I asked you to find for me a few days ago? Adamantium, vibranium, right, your request is too high, Tony. Pepper said helplessly. About 2 kilograms of adamantium alloy were found, and vibranium, according to the survey, it is only found in Wakanda in Africa. Africa, Tony was stunned. It's really far away. Can you get it? It's not easy, Pepper said. Vibranium is also a metal brought by meteorites. It is rare and most of it is collected by the Wakanda royal family. The royal family, that's more convenient, Tony smiled. Send a team over and say that I plan to invest in Wakanda, and the condition is vibranium. This is your usual tactic, Tony, Pepper said as if I had already guessed. Yes, it's customary. It's very useful, isn't it? I'm not lying. I'll invest when I say I'm going to invest. Tony said. 3 days. Do this within 3 days, dear Pepper. Try your best. The luxury car drove all the way to the beach and entered a seaside villa. This is Tony's home. After entering the house and telling Pepper some things, Tony dived into his exclusive laboratory. Jarvis, let's continue what we were doing. Okay, sir. Jarvis had been imprisoned by Zhao Yu earlier when he used the first summoning holy card. Although it was just a magic possessed by the Holy Spirit, but to unlock the imprisonment, with Tony's ability, he was completely confused. Even Zhao Yu himself neither can be done. At the beginning, Zhao Yu deceived Tony, saying that he could solve it by himself after understanding the basics of the chi refining method of the Chenkin talisman. That was just to lure Tony to practice this method. In fact, even if Tony cultivated his magic power and advanced in refining chi, he still wouldn't be able to do it. Fortunately, Zhao Yu didn't forget this when he used the summoning card for the second time, that is, when the demons and monsters gathered at the farm, and easily released the restraint through the air. Otherwise, this artificial intelligence would still have to be in Tony at this moment. Office in Stark Tower. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.